Howdy, friends. Happy Sunday. And welcome to another show, doing a live show. And I'm going to be covering some of the events of last week, a lot of it based on, the debate, the presidential debate that happened in the middle of the week. Well, Friday night. And the media reaction and political reaction that's happened from that, which has been probably more newsworthy than the debate itself, other than the stream of senior moments that Biden treated us to on the debate stage. Because those definitely raised eyebrows, at least, or blood pressure for a lot of people involved in the campaign. So we're going to be taking a look at some of this stuff. But first and foremost, I'm going to kind of cover some things because the one person who seems to be really excited about this, even though he said he's not that excited about voting for Trump, he's sort of holding his nose and voting for the one that matches his values, is Pine Creek. Good old Doug at Pine Creek. In fact, actually, now that I think about it, I goofed up my description. I've got to tag him in this. His reaction to this has been to create a lot of shorts, and most of his shorts have been kind of focused on, for some reason, calling people out for being liars or calling them out for contradictions for things they said in the past versus things they might be saying now. And so I'm going to go through, there's a couple of shorts that he did where he's done this. And I'm going to show you the original shorts to put this in context. You can maybe count this out because, like I said, despite the fact that Doug has been like, oh, yeah, I'll vote for Trump because he's probably closest to me in terms of values. But, he's dead inside and couldn't care less. He seems to be very excited about this, at least to the extent I think that if this hurts people's feelings or causes them any kind of duress, then he's really into it. So maybe it's I don't know if there's German heritage in there. The Schadenfreude is quite heavy with Doug. So first, let's say hello to a few people in the chat. Pragmatic Crystal was like, I was here first, and with a reminder, thank you very much, PC. And thank you for sharing my social media links here, Twitter and TikTok. Cutlery Duck is here. Good to see you. Jail Warren is here. Good to see you. Darth Bonson is here. Hello, friend. Cocos is here. Good evening to you. Spooky Bed Hair. I've been waiting all day for this stream. Oh, well, I'm probably going to disappoint because there's only so much to cover. And actually, I do have, now that you mentioned that, there's quite a bit to actually cover on this. And I do have some thoughts about like how I think the Dems have kind of messed this up in at least two directions. And I was going to do a video, probably a recorded video, on what I would do if I were playing the Democrats as my player in a game on politics, what I would have done a year or two ago, planning stuff out. It's probably too late for them to follow my strategy, and also my strategy probably isn't workable given the personalities currently in the Democratic Party and the DNC. But yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Cutlery Deck. Kent Hovind CPA, good to see you. And yeah, happy travels while door dashing. Alex Baptista is here. Good to see you. Michael Deaton, I'm here-ish. Good to see you. Thanks for that reminder. And then Gordo Gold is also here. Release the balls. Good to see you, Sean King. Haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. So yeah, I guess with this, we're just going to jump right into it. So yeah, for context here, like I said before, Doug seemed he seems extra thirsty now for Trump, now that the debate has gone not so much in it's gone in Trump's favor in that Biden just face planted so hard, but it didn't really go in Trump's favor in that he really landed anything other than what he's normally done. Most of the snippets that come from his debate performance really aren't any different than what he would give. I mean, they're like shorter excerpts of things that he would have rambled about at one of his campaign rallies. So it really didn't make much of a difference to him at all. Other than the fact that he looked healthy in that kind of, idiosyncratic definition of healthy that Trump aligns with. I mean, healthy in that it looks like he was stuffed full of Big Macs and feeling, Genki. Yeah, Biden didn't look good. Didn't sound good. Looked like he was half asleep. Struggled with talking points. Struggled with seeming to understand where he'd gone wrong when he flubbed on his talking points, and then when he did, just sort of tucked into himself. And then his best reactions to to Trump were, well, he had a couple of good, morals of an alley cat, which is about as old fashioned as you get. In full disclosure, I covered this last Friday live with JL Warren on his channel, Bridge the Divide. And I'm surprised it hasn't gotten taken down, because I keep hearing about how CNN is really pulling any live commentary, live streams like that. But maybe it's a matter of time. JL Warren's stream, his channel's bigger than mine by at least a factor of 3, I think. But it's small enough. Maybe he's sliding under the radar there. But yeah, they've gotten really heavy handed and keeping any of that commentary down. They basically just want you going to their stuff to watch it. That didn't stop people from trying to fact check live or fact check after the point. That happened a lot. But yeah, we covered that for just about 4 hours. And our reactions to it was, I think we both agreed that our general consensus was that it was a shit show. On both sides, all 3 sides, really. Biden gave the worst debate performance I've seen ever. Trump just was Trump, so that was just kind of bad. I mean, he lied. I mean, he brought out some of the weirder lies that I thought that he would have avoided in this debate. Like, apparently, you can have an elective abortion, an elective termination of pregnancy when you're no longer pregnant. That's a hell of a lie, and CNN's formatting and their moderation was just weird. The format was something that Biden wanted, and it didn't work out in Biden's favor. It was a complete failure. This channel has the wrong mascot. Are you volunteering yourself? Because it's not Spatch Duck. That rooster can't even quack. No, but it can. It can, do its thing. The cockadoodle. Yeah, Jail says, yeah, I haven't gotten an email about it. So yeah, it's weird. I thought, and I remember asking him about that. Is this going to be okay? And he's like, fair use. We're watching. We're commenting on it live. It's a public debate. It's a presidential debate. Should be fine. And maybe that's going to, maybe that will win the day. But yeah, I'd heard from other people that they were really having issues with it. And there's the debate commentary link right there. Thank you, PC. And so, a senile awkward. Yeah. It's kind of looking like that. So here we go. So this is what I want to do. So now that the reactions are still coming out, they're going to keep coming out. There's going to be a lot more commentary about this. I'm starting to see it wind back the other way. But so starting off with Pine Creek's reactions to it, his shorts, the shorts that he's created in place of this one. This one caught my attention, and I started commenting on it, and I've gotten a decent amount of pushback from anybody in the comments about my points. This was side by side of Joe Scarborough contradicting / arguing against himself. Hashtag MSNBC, hashtag debate, hashtag Biden, hashtag Trump. So here we go. Usual rules apply. Yell at me if this isn't loud enough. Pine Creek loves that. I don't know what it is with right-wing trolls loving that particular sound clip, but they use it a lot. They use it to death. So what I wanted to point out here is that, so you've got Joe Scarborough seemingly contradicting and arguing with himself. How could that be? Why is he contradicting himself? Well, the simplest answer is he's not arguing with himself, and he's not contradicting himself because, let's see here. The clips of him being positive about Joe Biden's performance came from his reaction to the State of the Union speech, which, I mean, I think unanimously everybody said that Biden nailed it out of the park. He did so well that Fox News ended up establishing a new little hashtag for him, Jacked Up Joe. He must have been on amphetamines in order to do that well. And so you can see here from his, Scarborough's glasses, haircut, and suit that those comments were coming from his reaction to this thing 3 months ago, right? The reactions that he's having to the campaign performance were here, and that was from 2 days ago. So yeah, now obviously this is posting and stuff, but this was the morning after the debate, or the night of. I think it was the morning after. But yeah, I got the day wrong. It was Thursday evening that JL and I, because that was the night of the day. So Friday morning was this. This was just last Friday. This one was from 3 months ago on a show, reacting to State of the Union, reacting to his most recent debate. This is not a contradiction. These are two different reactions. He's concerned about Biden here, not at all concerned about Biden back then when Biden did this well. Now his concern. For anybody keeping score at home, not a contradiction. This is chalked up to the passage of time. There's no audio? Let me try this again then. Let me stop the screen, share it out again. I don't know why it's not doing that. Oh, I bet I do know why it's not doing that. Nope, that's fine. Present. I'm gonna have to do these tab at a time then. I thought they let you share out the audio for the entire screen, but apparently it still does not do that. Okay, let's start over. Sorry for the waste of time there, folks. I was giving commentary and none of you heard what was going on. So here was Pine Creek Short.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
You are hurting the cause of America by closing your eyes, putting your head down, and saying we're going to just plow forward regardless of what we saw. F you if you can't handle the truth. What all of us saw last night, he's far beyond cogent. The inability to complete sentences. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been.
Oops. 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 Right?
Okay, that reaction would be warranted if he was saying those things like within a day apart, or if he said them on the same day or something. But this is what kind of selective editing will get for you. So let me share out the one that you probably should see. I'll share this one out here. Well, actually, now that I've played that, I think I can actually just share out the full screen. That was the audio that I wanted to play there. So that's for the context. And then what I mentioned before was the side-by-sides going on there. I didn't need to play video from those. One was a reaction from 3 months ago from the State of the Union address, where he's like, he's better than he's ever been. He's he's more cogent than ever. And then his sad reaction to how we reacted to the State of the Union. Right. That was it. So not a great edit here. Right. I don't know if this is supposed to be done for humor. If it is, it's bad. And the only other take on it, but I mean, that he's actually he's contradicting / arguing against himself. He is not doing that. One is the first one, the snippets in there where he's being positive are reactions from almost 4 months ago. The date on there is 3 months ago. The other reactions, the negative reactions where he's concerned about his health and concerned about his bad performance at the debate, were from last Friday morning. So not a contradiction. And in fact, when I presented this, I'm not going to waste you guys' time going over the comments because the comments are boring. But if you're interested, the link to this short is in there. Go to the comments and see that, because I basically put that in there. And then Pine Creek jumps in and tries to defend it. It is a contradiction because Scarborough had mentioned in his positive, glowing praise of his State of the Union address that Biden's never had this problem. It's always been a right-wing invention, something like this. And now all of a sudden, Scarborough is the hypocrite because he didn't catch on to this. It's like, I don't know if Pine Creek has dealt with the elderly, but the elderly can, if they start facing cognitive decline, can decline quite quickly in a matter of months. And if you haven't really been, and it depends on, and they can decline in different ways. If you're having conversations with them, you may not see the types of decline that are going on there. But if if he was able to debate, like if you watch his debates, even in the Democratic primaries going back a few years, much sharper, much more on point. Still prone to gaffes, still prone to misspeaking, but not this prone to getting lost in thought and just trailing off and losing his train of thought. So there's that. Let's get into the other one that happened here. And this was, where did he put this one? I'll get it pulled up for you. Okay. Okay, here's this one from Dr. Fauci. This is, again, Pine Creek's one of his newest things. Also trying to do the same thing. Not only was Scarborough a hypocrite and contradicting himself, but now Fauci is too.
Absolutely. You know,
Chief Medical Advisor Anthony Fauci says Biden is fit to serve because he is evidence-based.
absolutely. Because the first thing he
Let's take this back.
What about Biden? Do you believe he is fit to lead us for the next?
Oh,
4 years?
absolutely. You know, absolutely. Because the first thing he did when I became his chief medical advisor, we had a conversation literally the first day saying we want to go with the evidence and the truth. And if we make a mistake, we correct it, but we've got to be honest with what's going on.
What about Biden? Do you believe he is fit to lead us for the next? 4
Oh,
years?
absolutely.
Okay, so there's that. So if we end up getting into, let's just share out the whole screen here. So that was his thing. Okay, well he must be out of his mind. How why on earth would he say something like that? Well, here's the thing. Fauci, I can get rid of these captions. He was on CBS Mornings to discuss his new book. And as you can see here, this was on June 18th, almost 2 weeks ago. And he was being asked about the president's age and his ability to handle it. The debate, I have to remind everybody, was last Thursday. And this was posted 2 days ago. So as far as I can tell, I attempted to look up, did Fauci have any reaction to Biden's performance at the debate? And the only thing that I could only find one source, and it was Fox News, said that Fauci had responded with, it's an individual decision if the president decides he wants to step down or continue. And I think he was right on the points of the topics. Like he was substantively right about some stuff, even though Biden did get caught in a lot of exaggerations and stuff. So I'm not exactly sure what the point of this stuff is. Pine Creek is really trying to roll out, he's really trying to improve his shorts game here. And that's admirable. But the context that he's trying to put these in is bad. This is bad. This is hacky. I don't even think this is worthy of this is the kind of stuff that you would see on maybe Newsmax, possibly The Blaze. But I think even Fox News would be maybe not. Although they did have Jason Miller on, who was an advisor to Donald Trump. And Jason Miller declared Donald Trump's performance during the debate to be the best debate performance ever. Not Trump's best ever. Not the best in Trump's career. Not the best since Trump was president. The best ever. Apparently since the beginning of time. No one has delivered a debate performance like Donald Trump, according to his advisor, Jason Miller. So you have to take anything that they're doing over there with also a huge grain of salt. But most people, I think, know that about Fox News. Fox News considers themselves entertainment anyway. Jail says, despite the performance, he was markedly better when he was in North Carolina. Afterwards, strange the media isn't talking much about it. Well, and that gets me into point two, because what was bigger, I think, than the debate, the fact that Biden was really bad during the debate performance, he was better in his appearance after the debate, and he was much better the following day. He did appear at a North Carolina rally, and he was much more fired up. He seemed a lot more alert, a lot better than he did during that entire debate. The debate format ended up backfiring on him horribly because it turned every gaffe that he made into a clickable, TikTokable, tweetable video, which, I'm sure just gave, people like Pine Creek just the giggles forever. And for Trump, it was really of no benefit, because if somebody were to clip Trump, any of the stuff that he said from that debate, it was almost identical to stuff that he said at his rally. So they didn't get anything new from him. So the only thing that was provided, so Trump, as far as I'm concerned, like, even if you were a Trumper, it was kind of boring. Like, you can hear all the same stuff over and over and over again at his rallies. Biden was the only one that provided anything new, and what he provided was a lot of, he was supposed to come on there and assure people that he was ready for the next 4 years. What he ended up doing was making people a little concerned that he wasn't going to make it through the next 4 minutes. That seems to be the reaction. The news ends up popping up where people in campaigns, people in Democratic circles, basically DC libs and power brokers and stuff all start chit-chatting with each other because it looks terrible. So then what I was surprised at was the reaction that came after that. What we ended up getting was calls for him to resign from the editorial board of the New York Times. And like the following week, I think, maybe even Friday. Also, on top of them doing that article, they also put out an article from Thomas Friedman saying he needs to resign and the Democratic Party needs to go with a new candidate. And Paul Krugman, who's written, both these guys have written for the New York Times for years, also put out his own, saying that he needed to resign. Then Joe Scarborough came out the following Friday morning and was talking like that. And Biden follows that news. Well, like, Biden's a big, Morning Joe fan. So I'm not exactly sure how these discussions are going, but even if he got that information from Morning Joe the next day, didn't really seem to stamp down any of his enthusiasm, because, like I said, the rally was that same Friday. So anyway, they're all talking about this and, what's going to happen next. I don't know that they're actually going to be able to remove him or anything. They can't really remove him. The only thing that could happen, as far as him being a candidate, I believe he pretty much has to step down. The way the DNC works, he is the presumptive nominee. He's going to be the nominee because he's the incumbent, because he's the president. The DNC has been kind of winnowed down that way. They don't really, it's really even hard to primary an incumbent Democrat president. So it's bad, either way. But whether or not they can do that or will do that is anybody's guess. I wouldn't put anything past them. I do know that, generally speaking, this is my take on it, over the past years, the Republican Party has been radically transformed. At least the radical transformation has happened on the optics side of things. They've been very transformed by the fact that they've been converted into a cult of personality entirely behind Trump, to the point where even the platform, like not this last platform, but the one before, I think that they cemented during the, I think it's 2019, 2020, something like that, was, we're just going to do whatever Trump thinks is cool. Now they're still sort of behind this, and really the RNC is kind of in his control. They're making sure that all funding goes towards his election, these kinds of things. So, and they've kind of doubled down and tripled down on a lot of the kind of authoritarian rhetoric, and they've moved away from, how many times do you hear these guys talk about fiscal responsibility? They barely talk about it anymore. Now, but the Democrats seem to be holding on to this idea that they're going to be they're going to be the bulwark against this radical transformation in American politics. That they're going to hold up the institutions and do all this. That was the kind of stuff that the conservatives were supposed to stand for, and now the Democratic Party is supposed to be stepping into this. And anytime it calls for any kind of like flexibility or kind of dramatic moves that they could make that could kind of benefit them during an election, because elections are about marketing. They can't do it. And there were ways that they could have played the Republicans so easy years ago, a couple years back, if they had set out a plan. And I'd mentioned it before in one of my videos. I didn't lay it out in detail, but I was like, this is what I think they should have done just to make sure that they would have a strong showing in 2024 come the election cycle. But I kind of figured it was a long shot if they were going to do that. Very few presidents are willing to just serve one term and step down. So I watched for half hour. I'm not sure I heard Trump say one single true thing in that half hour. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because Pine Creek does another short where he says something. He's talking about a TikToker who is liberal, left wing, whatever, pro Biden, and he was being interviewed by Pierce Morgan, and he's using a lot of hyperbolic language. Trump lied through the whole thing. Trump never told the truth. A lot of this kind of absolute language, and Pine Creek was like, he never told the truth. He never did. I'm like, well, I'm sure he told the truth if he ever referred to himself in the third person and got his name right. Then yes, he told the truth. Were any of his claims substantive or truthful? Almost none of them. Almost none of the claims that he made about anything related to policy or even just recent history were true. None of them. So I think it's fair to say, like, just in colloquial, like Pine Creek likes to do, like, oh, you know, that guy, the dad that, you know, the kid says, well, he lies all the time, all the time. Like, look, it's a figure of speech. You know what I mean? It's hyperbolic speech. Just leave it be, right? He's probably going to clip that. I'm like, this is evidence that Spatchcock is an apologist. Like, no, this is me just being like, you don't need to be a language Nazi and use these kind of bad faith high school debate, you know, tactics on people and act like you're scoring a win. I tried to look up because I was kind of curious about it. When J.L. Warren and I covered it, I don't remember hearing a factual claim from Trump about anything related to the debate questions. So in terms of substance of the debate, nearly every topic that was brought up that I can remember, well, actually, from my memory, every topic that was brought up, Trump said something incorrect about it or blatantly misrepresented it. Everything that I remember hearing. I don't remember saying, now, if you want to say, like, well, did he get everything wrong? Occasionally he would use a sentence that included the word I. When he used that, he wasn't lying. He was correct when he was referring to himself. Usually what followed after that was very spun. So the whiny strongman. But too many progressives who never liked Biden were waiting to pounce too, and the self-defacing clothes tearing was over the top and unnecessary. What I wanted to know was why the reaction at first, because it's one thing for like leftists to like react and be like, we told you, you stupid centrists, that Biden was going to be a problem, especially as he gets older, you know, because they want somebody who's more progressive, right? And the party's not willing to move, the Democratic Party's not willing to move that far left, at least, you know, not overnight. And yeah, in that case, I kind of follow that. But when you're hearing people who are sort of establishment DC figures and liberals react the way I would expect people at the Majority Report to react, or Vosh to react, or people in these categories, people who are very far left and very critical of Biden, I thought it was weird that there was automatically these sort of establishment calls for the DNC needs to do something about this. They need to consider switching in a new guy. I thought that was the most interesting aspect, because normally they wouldn't. And some people came out and said, you know, there's other people that came out and said other things. One of which actually is here. Let me pull this up. There is let's see. I hope I don't get canceled for playing this one. This was from 3 days. I'm going to play this back a little faster because he speaks kind of slowly. This is Lawrence O'Donnell this was posted 3 days ago. This is on him talking about the job. And I want to play this, at least first part, to talk about his commentary here and what I think he gets right and simultaneously wrong at the same time. Nope, that's not going to do it. Am I presenting the screen again? I sure am. Let's remove that. There we go.
Campaign debates were invented by and for TV. 1960 wasn't just the first televised presidential debate, it was the first.
Yeah.
George Washington never debated. Abraham Lincoln famously participated in the Lincoln-Douglas debates, but that was in a Senate campaign that Abraham Lincoln lost. We had 34 presidents in a row who never debated to get the job.
That's true. This really has been, it's a modern invention, and it really didn't come about until the 1960s. And by and large, I mean, it was kind of driven by, advertising in general, and for people, politicians who wanted to embrace the new medium.
If you're around 70 years old, you can actually remember seeing every presidential debate in history. That's how few there have been. You could have seen every one of them. And not one of those debates has actually been a test of anything presidential except demeanor. And the only presidential campaign debater in history who has failed the basic demeanor test is Donald Trump. The debate rules are always absurd and test nothing about the job of the presidency.
That's not entirely true. I don't agree with that, because part of what has happened in the modern age in terms of not just television, but also in social media, an executive should have the ability to kind of communicate this better. It is the case that you could have somebody who was sitting in the job of the presidency, who was able to make these really good choices and probably wasn't the best at summing up their decision, explaining it to the population. But I think that's often been the case. George W. Bush, I think, was a great example of that. He was a piss poor communicator, and his decisions were bad. So, which was why he was remarkable. I think that was one of the big reasons he was remarkably unpopular by the time his second term was wrapping up. People just gotten sick of hearing him because their justifications for making some of the crazy ass, things that they did were usually, glib and frankly stupid. But what O'Donnell's talking about here, just in the scope of American history, this is true. You don't necessarily have to be a good debater to be good at the job of being the president. But if you're incapable of having the kinds of discussions that, if they wanted to test your ability to have a conversation about these points and about policy, then yeah, don't do a debate. Do a roundtable with these people and have a discussion with them there. I've always thought that would be better. If they had a roundtable discussion with all the candidates, they actually did this, I think, with the Democratic primary did that with Clinton, Obama, and John Edwards. And I think John Edwards actually did the best out of them until Edwards' campaign got rocked with scandal, and that was the end of that. I like Biden. He's like the uncle that visits at Christmas and doesn't try to get you to sit on his knee. Yeah. But he does smell your hair a lot, right? Let's see. The amount of lies were astounding. Yeah, I mean, JL and I could barely keep up with it. I agree. The focus on the left needs to be, we're voting for an administration to stop Trump from ruining the courts more, and against Project 2025. It's that simple. Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what you end up voting for. The problem that I see with a lot of the tactics coming from the DNC here is that, look, you're voting for an administration, and you're voting for representation in this office. The office is more important than the man, unless you're Donald Trump, because Donald Trump believes he's the reason that the presidency will be great. The presidency is shit unless Trump is there. That's his philosophy, which is the wrong philosophy. So if you're voting for somebody like Biden, you are voting for his administrative picks, and you're voting for Kamala Harris to take over. Because you've got that, you've got the succession in place should anything happen to the sitting president, regardless of, what the circumstances are, if they have to step down, or if they die in office, or, anything like this, or if they just resign. They resign due to, for personal, professional reasons. They resign. There is that succession in place. It's interesting because I think it would be interesting if they asked Donald Trump more about that. Like, well, you're 78, going 79. What would you do if, like, your health took a turn for the worse? Would you do what was best for the country and hand the reins over to your VP? I bet he'd be really uncomfortable answering that question. I bet he would not want to face that question, because I really don't think he wants to face his own mortality. His hair is good evidence of that. But yeah, getting back into this. So he's saying on the rules that will make the first debate of 20 absurdly unrealistic. And but he gets into a point here about, he's talking about the job.
The rules tomorrow night are typical. They say, quote, the debate will begin with a question. with candidates each allotted 2 minutes to respond. This will
Right.
be followed by 1 minute rebuttals and responses to the rebuttals.
Exactly. And I don't know. The reason that you normally do that is so, like, I could understand the logic of this before. It allows you give a 2 minute response, which is essentially a campaign talking point. And then the other side can object to it for a minute. And then you can say something back in response. And then that's it. Then they move on to the question for the other candidate. And that was supposed to be kind of how the back and forth went. There was a little bit of discretion allowed for the moderators going forward after that. The problem with this is, and he's going to get into this right now, I think.
In the job of the presidency, the president is never forced to give 2 minute replies or 60-second replies about anything, ever. There's an especially ridiculous rule for tomorrow night's commercial breaks.
But that's not the point, right? I agree with him, but that isn't the point. The point is to show, is this guy who's coming up here, can he represent the talking points of his campaign? Can he tell us what he's doing? And with that being in place, then, people have some confidence in this. What unfortunately a lot of them have become like a pro wrestling match, which is more of what that's the TV element of it, which is why if you just wanted to have these guys sit around and chit chat at each other, I think that would be more damaging. That would be more telling, having them sit around in an interview format, just talking, rather than debating. Although the problem with the DNC would be if they tried to do a format like that, I think the DNC would still hire people to over prepare the president to do that, rather than going into a format where it allows both of them more time to talk. It would have done them both better if they had more time to talk. Now, the problem with Trump would be that he would probably suck up a lot of the oxygen talking bullshit. I mean, I don't know how long he can ramble on, like, his sort of like, you can terminate a pregnancy after you've given birth riff. But the longer he talks about that, the worse he looks to independents. So let him run, right? Or if you're really going to moderate it in an actual conversation, you rein him back in, like, okay, stop spinning. Tell me what you actually think. No way can Biden be the nom. In fact, I feel lied to about his abilities. He needs to step aside for re-election within the week. That's a key thing, I think. And thank you very much for that super chat. This is a key point that I had an issue with, because there's articles from The Intercept, there's articles from the New York Times that are talking about the fact that, like, they've been hearing rumblings about severe slippage from Biden since the State of the Union address. Like, there's been rumbles about it ever since he's been in. Is he going to be old enough to be a two-termer? And remember that he initially said that he was really only interested in serving for one, just to kind of fix the damage Trump did, and then he wasn't going to run for re-election. And then it was going to be another primary, which would have been hugely beneficial this year for the Democratic Party. But unfortunately, he didn't do it. And I think there's reasons. I think there's a lot of reasons why, but I don't think any of his reasons are good. I've liked most aspects of his administration, but any reason to continue it past that point. And this is a problem that we've seen with the Supreme Court judges. This party seems to be filled with people who are interested more in individual legacy than they are interested in their party's ability to retain some kind of continuity and a coordinated effort to make sure that they can move their policies forward. Because if they're legitimately concerned that they need to get a certain kind of legislative thing across and make progress, that's one thing. But also, if the case is they truly believe, according to their rhetoric, that Donald Trump and the Republican Party, and this current iteration of the Republican Party, is the existential threat to the current, to American democracy, then they need to be willing to do what it takes to forego their individual pride and their individual legacy and do what's right for the country. And they need to be operating as a team, as a unit, and they're not. There's too much of that shit going on. There's too many ball hogs in here, and most of these ball hogs are in their 70s and 80s, from Schumer, Pelosi, Trump. We had the same thing happen with Feinstein. She insisted on coming back, and she looked like a ghost, and she was not prepared to stay in. RGB did the same thing on the court. There have been concerns coming up about Sonia Sotomayor and her health. She travels with a health aide. This is the kind of stuff that they need to plan for. Like, look, you've done well and you've made accomplishments, but there is a time, the clock beats us all. You need to step aside and hand it off to a new generation of people who can come in and have the duration to carry on your work, maybe even improve upon your work. So I appreciate that. I'm skeptical about the that's my problem. The fact that Biden did that badly was one thing, but the reaction coming from establishment Democrats made me suspicious as to what are they not talking about, because that was a reaction that was disproportionate. Like it just seemed like, wait, so you're now realizing that your candidate is old? We have an old president. He's an elderly man, and he's doing elderly man things on a stage. If you were prepared for this, then why would you even put him up for these debates? They didn't even have to have these debates. They could have just as easily said, there's no point in engaging in a debate with Donald Trump because all he does is burp up his crazy conspiratorial talking points. And they probably would have been fine. It wouldn't have changed a thing. They could have done other things to try to win over independents, a bigger social media push, more public appearances, even rally performances. Biden has been doing fine at that. This idea that they wanted him to get out there and do the debate, I think, was, look, he did great in the State of the Union. He looked sharp. We get him to do a debate early enough, strike while the iron's hot, and he gives a repeat performance. That'll put all these concerns to rest. And it completely flipped on him. And to the point where even donors were skeptical. There's an article in the New York Times about how wealthier donors are wondering, should I even donate to the campaign if they're going to switch candidates come the convention, if we're going to talk about this? Or should I just concentrate on fundraisers and donations to down ticket candidates? So the level of coordination here has not been good. So this is a complete fit. I don't entirely blame Biden for this. I do blame Biden for not having the foresight to know that he should have stepped down. He should have just been a one-termer. And I had a plan, my own little game plan of how that could work. And like I said, I'll probably do a video about that later. But the DNC and the people that are with him, when you say, okay, I'm not concerned about Biden that much because I know that he surrounded himself with smart, capable people. He's going to put smart, capable people in these different departments, as Secretary of Education, as Secretary of Labor, et cetera, et cetera. But the people directly surrounding him, if they're going along with this, they're not that bright. And that makes me concerned. Because it's like, they don't even have to be lying to me about the effects of his age. It could just be, he had a particularly bad night. Normally he's fine. But the way they're talking about this, after this concern came up and this reaction from Dems, like, who do we donate to? According to the New York Times article, the Biden campaign didn't contact them, wasn't responsive to emails, basically kind of like shut them out for 24 hours. That's not good. That was weird. So there was some kind of all hands on deck. What do we do? How do we craft the message? How do we spin this? Deaton says, look, if Biden is the nominee and you care at all about the courts, you vote Biden because you're not voting for Biden. You're voting for the Dems to run things, period. Agreed. The other option is putting a guy in office who's literally said he wants to be a dictator and who tried to overthrow the last election and will not allow another election if he and his party roll. Exactly. And my criticism here isn't that the party, like, you switch your vote. I don't think that there is any way to argue that. Voting for Donald Trump for me is a complete non-starter because he's not a president. He doesn't care about the office. He doesn't care about the country. He cares about not going to jail. He cares about being able to vindicate himself in the eyes of the television public, that once he gets appointed this power, he's going to abuse this to make sure that he protects himself first, and then some of his close family, friends, and allies second, and then the rest of us a distant third and fourth, if at all. I mean, if we have to suffer in order that he benefit, he's perfectly fine with that. There is no option. At this point, if Biden were to disappear and all they have to vote for on election day is a cardboard cutout of Biden and the actual Donald Trump, you vote for that cardboard cutout because the cardboard cutout is more substantive as a political leader than Donald Trump is, because Donald Trump is actively harmful. This is the guy with $5 million and the guy with $0, and that's all you can take into account. Which one can do the most damage to the country? The Donald Trump or the cardboard cutout of a Democratic candidate? The one that can do the least damage is the Democratic candidate. This is literally about voting to make sure the dangerous guy does not get in.
There will be 2 commercial breaks, and the rule says campaign staff may not interact with their candidate during that time. That could not be more childish and unrealistic. Presidents always can confer, not just with their staffs and the cabinet, but with the very best experts in the world on every subject at any time for as long as they want. A better way to do this tomorrow night. would actually be to allow the candidates to have as many staff as they want, join them on the stage throughout the debate, and make sure that all of them have microphones. And the candidates should be allowed to turn to their staffs and confer with them about anything at any time.
That would be interesting. I actually kind of agree with this. This would be interesting. This might
In
not
the
be the
debate.
same one I saw.
And we should be able to hear everything they say. So we can hear if the candidate has competent or incompetent staff. We could hear the candidate overrule some advisors and say something else. We could watch the candidates actually think.
Yeah, I'll stop it here. I think this is a different one that he did maybe a night after. There was one that he was talking about where he was kind of getting into the same thing, but the position that he took, I thought was kind of odd in that he said, look, part of this we don't really have to worry about because ratings wise, it was one of the lowest rated debates ever. I think only like 50 million people tuned into it. The problem with that, in old school logic, generally, if people don't tune into a televised debate, it means they've already decided on who they're going to vote for, or they're disengaged in the election generally. They just lack interest, or it's just the wrong time, if it's this early. But the other problem is the majority of people now are getting a lot of this kind of stuff through Facebook or YouTube clips. They don't need to watch it live. They can watch it later. And the format that was selected for this by the Biden campaign made the clippability of this discussion, of this debate, potentially more viral, which is what's happened. And Biden has been more viral in this because Biden looks decidedly weaker. He was doing bad. And Trump didn't differentiate himself from any of his other Looney Tunes moments in his campaign rallies. There really isn't anything. I mean, can you think of any part in it? I mean, he lied a bunch. Sure. He misrepresented a lot of facts, a lot of history. But how is that different than any other campaign performance he gave? Any rally speech that he gives, they're always like this. So he didn't distinguish himself in any way. So I don't think in this case, he's actually won over any independents. And I think post-debate polling has kind of shown that. He didn't do anything there. The only thing that's really come up is Democratic Party and Democratic elite concern about Biden's capability of pulling this off. But I think in contrast, it still has to be said, this dude's running against Trump, who wants back in the job after the fuck-ups of his first time at the job. He had one crisis, granted it was a massive one, and he pooched it hardcore. So, let's see. CNN seriously dropped the ball. They should have cut off Trump's mic when he went off topic and should have pressed him to respond to the question that was asked. Yeah, and instead, what did they do? What they did was actually something I didn't expect them to do. I wasn't sure that if they were going to do this, and then they did it. He would run for 2 minutes, and then they would stop him and then repeat the question and give him more time to do it. And then he would just run off for 2 minutes again, and it was just campaign rally craziness. And then they'd stop him, and then they'd move on. They wouldn't fact check him. There was no pushback. They basically kind of left that. And they also had pushback against anybody trying to cover it or fact check it live. You could get live stream topics and updates through things like, Twitter feeds and stuff like that. People would comment on it, but anybody trying to cover it live via video, no. CNN did not want that. Thanks for that, PC. When should we fact check if not in a presidential debate? Exactly. Yeah. If the moderators aren't willing to do that, then maybe have fact checkers going behind the scenes and bringing that up. I mean, JL Warren and I were doing that. We were looking at links. We were pausing to say, I just looked up the stats on this. Trump is saying that he's going to do more. We're going to have the cleanest air. We're going to have the cleanest water. When he was last in, he gutted over 100 different EPA regulations, specifically regarding clean air, clean water, and actually clean soil. I mean, he was not good as an environmental steward. Apparently, the time to fact check is when you're not trying to keep his crazy conservative base as viewers. Exactly. CNN has been clamoring for that for a long time. So with that out of the way, that was the one that I wanted to, but that other point that Lawrence O'Donnell had made, it's not that big of a deal. It wasn't really watched by that many people. I don't think O'Donnell understands the effect that this is going to have in terms of viral social media clips and that kind of outreach. The DNC and Democratic committees have been really bad, and campaign managers have been very bad at catching up to this kind of stuff. Trump manages to do this pretty well because Trump will say outlandish things, and people who are fans of him will then just parrot that. And Trump is more than happy to let them do that, and that just creates kind of a viral sensation of BS and hogwash. So Should I say hogwash? Is hogwash too close to malarkey? I don't want to be accused of being too old on this thing. But let's take a look and see what's going on here. I'm kind of surprised because there's no more. Well, we'll take a look. Because I got plenty of time and it's Sunday. There's not much to do. This is his Saturday night hangout. So Doug had a hangout last night, a live one. Got to make this full screen, and let's see. We'll get through the music here. Okay, now he's talking to this is going to be him talking about that kid. So, all right, usual rules apply. Yell at me if you can't hear this. I'm going to keep it at 1.25. I think it still is at that. Nope, it's at normal. Let's bump this up a little bit and see what happens.
Hey, welcome. What's up, Myron? You thought the debate was an utter disaster?
Hello, folks. I heard from Democracy Now! That not only did the Biden team choose and the Trump team agreed to all terms, that it will be CNN, no audience and no fact checking. So it's really the Democrats' fault. No, I agree. It's the campaign. It's not really the entire all of the Democrats. Not every Democrat agreed to this idea. I don't think not even every Democrat agreed to the Biden campaign pushing up the debates. Because technically these two guys are debating before they've been nominated. Normally, presidential candidate debates like this happen once they have been nominated by their respective parties. Then they go into the debate thing and then into the election. The fact that they wanted to do this early, I thought was kind of dumb. But again, I think it was 2 to 3. The news cycle on Trump's strong performance at the State of the Union address had died down, and you started seeing it started creeping back up again. Is Biden okay? Is Biden too old? Is he still there? And they're like, you know what? We got to do a 1-2 punch here. Here's punch number 2. We're going to get him out on an early debate. We're going to control the things. He's going to kick his ass, and it absolutely backfired on him. And so I really do believe that was engineered in order to get him back positively into a news cycle where they couldn't talk about him being too old or being too senile to do it. And then he showed up at the very least with a head cold, at most suffering from a very, very bad night. So hog twaddle. Yeah, I should probably try and use that one. Let's see. It's Biden's fault. Yeah, it's Biden and the campaign's fault. And I think that they've lost perspective on this, but there's no way to mentally prepare for listening to Doug talk about this. There really isn't. But in this case, this is 2 people talking about this. And I don't know who this dude is here. The younger guy, he's a TikToker, and he's got like a Dark Brandon kind of meme thing going over his shoulder. So he's ready for this appearance.
The chief medical officer for the United States of America has claimed that
it's interesting, like the music at 1.25 speed sounds boosted, yet Doug still sounds normal. 1.25 is my favorite speed because it makes music sound completely surreal. It's like that soap opera effect you get on TV screens, when you don't take away the motion capture, instead of looking like a movie, it looks like a telenovela.
Joe Biden's fit for office. Yeah, Fauci himself said that. You got to trust Fauci. He knows what he's a doctor.
Fauci said that a couple weeks ago in response. He was there being interviewed about his book.
Yeah, I know the first 12 minutes was well, yeah, there was and he did. Yeah. Calm down, Myron. It's just politics.
That Doug keeps getting wrong. It sounds like Myron's making better points off camera.
What's that? You think it's over for Biden?
I don't think it's over for Biden. Okay, now Myron's just being hysterical.
I kind of think so too, but you never know what's going to happen. Great point, Myron. I pay minimum wage, but Myron just made a great point. He said that it's going to be up to the donors now. Yeah, if the
no, it's going to be up to the voters.
Money stops, Biden stops. Well, I mean, politically speaking. It's so late. No, it's not late, Jamie. It's only 6:32 where I'm from.
In 2016, I predicted Bill Maher would sell out. Bill Maher Bill Maher's always been all over the place, but
what time is it there where you're from? Hey, Jamie, should we open up the Discord and then you can co-host with me? You want to do that? You won't be on YouTube camera, I don't think. Well, unless you.
This is an excellent point. Lucky Wolf says, I thought Biden was supposed to be drugged to the eyeballs and couldn't fail to win the debate. Right. So despite the fact that like, oh, well, you know, and has Doug done a tweet on that, like kind of walking back? Hannity thought he was going to be jacked. Even Trump was saying that, look, going into it, like, I'm probably going to get, you know, he didn't say I'm going to get my ass kicked. He's like, if it looks like I lost, it's because they rigged it with CNN or because jacked up Joe showed up. You know, he had the compound V in him, you know, the steroids plus some radioactive Kool-Aid, whatever, right? Like that was the whole thing going into it. And then after this, it's just like, oh, okay. And now they're acting like that never happened. They never, jacked up Joe thing. Oh, never mind.
You want to do that? But I'm interested in your thoughts. You can put them in the live stream chat. I watched the debate with my family.
The donors haven't stopped the funding. In fact, I think Biden raised like a little over 14 or 15 million. The fact of the matter is, though, there is a good point to be made here. The point of nailing a debate performance is to gin up excitement to get more donors. In fact, the 72 hours after a debate performance, you usually always see an uptick in donations, even to people who are considered the losers of the debate. I don't know what the totals were for Trump, because Trump had already kind of experienced like a windfall from before, but he's had a couple big donations from some PACs and stuff come in. But yeah, like I said before, the New York Times talked about this because the big donors that were waiting to do this, and they kind of sit on this after it was done, they were a little bit confused about this and were waiting to hear back from the campaign and get reassurances, because normally they would do those donations. And the campaign wasn't in contact with them, at least according to that New York Times article. So it slowed down donations. They could have had better. They would have had a better night and a better 72-hour period following that of higher donations. If he had done something like this, I didn't expect he was going to do turn in a debate performance as good as his speech at the State of the Union. But people were saying that, and I was like, I didn't expect that. I did not expect him to be as bad at this, and I did not expect his campaign to be this bad at handling this. That's what made me nervous, was the fact that they weren't prepared for that, which makes me wonder, like, did they know what was going on with him? Did they put him out there when he did have a head cold? You know, did he have the wrong kind of medication in him? And he was just like, because like I said, the bit afterward where he's at the rally, he sounds fine. He sounds more energetic there than he did in the debate. So yeah, it's all over the place.
Family. and my wife was just like, she was like, this is so uncomfortable. Make it stop. Yeah. I was okay with the uncomfortableness. I kind of like uncomfortableness, but yeah. And my son, wife were very uncomfortable. My daughter was kind of liking it. And she kept on saying, pause it. I got something to say. Pause it. I got something to say. I just want to listen to no, pause it, Dad. My daughter loves to talk. It's 9:30, your bedtime, Jamie. Come on. You're a grown lady. You live a little. It's 3:30 a.m. for where Rami's from. Your brain is dead. Okay, I understand. So what I'll do is I will put
Trump did not get as many donor upswing than Biden, as far as I heard. Yeah, it would be kind of tough to. Like, I mean, if Biden had taken in like a $50 to $75 million haul like a week or two before the debate, I wouldn't have expected more than like, 10 million following a debate, because most of the donations were made in advance. And it seemed like that was sort of the thing with the upcoming debate coming up. There was a big push to get as many donations into the Trump campaign from anybody willing to do that. And so I don't think that there was that much left afterward. The trick for the Biden campaign is still flush with cash. They've got a lot of cash. The Trump campaign has more now, but it's still pretty close. And in terms of like, do they need more than that going into the, that we're about 5-6 months away from actually voting? They're still going to get small donations. The big donations, I think, have been kind of chilled. That's the trick. And generally speaking, this is the part of the year where you get into the summertime, and this is the time of year where people are less interested in doing this. You start getting towards the end of summer, kids are going back to school, the nominations have happened, the parties have officially decided on their candidates, and then they start going into those donations, they start going into those debates. That's when the big donations usually happen. That's a big thing right there. And I don't know if that was taken into consideration, scheduling a preemptive presidential debate so early. I don't think that they really should have messed with the schedule. Messing with the formatting, go nuts. Negotiate that away. But changing the schedule, I think, didn't do anybody any favors. Trump can get some serious work done without the Dems in his way. What Trump is interested in doing is basically doing what the Supreme Court helped do, which is demolish the administrative state and essentially leave the United States accountable to either Mandarin judges that the executive appoints and an unchecked executive with no real public counteraction. If you're talking about him being able to get things done for Jesus, let's just say, ask yourself this. If a church, denomination, or just a group of Christians stood up to Trump on an issue that they fundamentally disagreed with, how do you think Trump would react?
A link to maybe Whereby then. I also have a Discord channel now that Jamie graciously is doing all the work. How's that going, Jamie? Is the Discord fine? Was any problems? I got some things I can play with being president of the United States. Now, to be fair, the United States is not crumbling, right? I mean, there's bad things happening in the United States. Immigration's out of control. Crime in certain cities is out of control.
Immigration isn't out of control, and I don't. There are high crime rates, but a lot of them are in red states. I don't know. Some cities are dealing with elevated demographic issues because of the refugee crisis. That's not an immigration thing. I mean, it's connected to it because refugees are processed through an asylum system that's part of the immigration system, but it's not legal immigration procedures. It's not the kind of normal immigration you'd normally see. But
we're okay. We're surviving. So you don't even need a president that can actually even stand, maybe. I mean, and even think. It's just all the advisors in the background doing the work, right? I think people give way too much credit to the presidency and way too much blame to the presidency. When things go bad, it's not always the president's fault. When things go good, it's not always the president's praise.
Right. So maybe presidents should not talk about things like Biden should not take credit for individually helping to control inflation. It was an act that helped bring that down. They passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and it has been shown to at least keep it kind of in check. It doesn't mean that inflation has not happened. It still is going, but there is good evidence to show that it has helped it from spinning out of control. Do you know what would not do a great job of that? If somebody like Donald Trump came in and just decides to unilaterally pass tariffs. I think he actually said, I think his language was, we're just going to have tariffs passed on all foreign goods. And that's not gonna raise prices for Americans somehow. That'll just be great for the economy. It'd be great for the economy if they have a domestic supplier for an alternative product that they're going to go to. Yeah, that's why you do tariffs, is to protect a domestic supply, to get your own population to buy what your population is also producing. Otherwise, if they go and you charge a tariff to a foreign country, the companies that build those products and send them over here, they pass that price on to the consumer. So the government collects the tariff. The price is passed down to the consumer. It's a negative pressure on purchasing the international product, and then a positive pressure, an incentive to go buy the domestic thing. But there has to be enough of the domestic stuff available to meet the domestic demand. And depending on what you impose those tariffs on, you're just basically you're just raising the price. You're taxing your citizens.
We're doing. But yeah, what else did I make here? Oh no, I can't even play one. I made one on the book bans today. That book banning is sometimes good.
Exactly. Trump still doesn't understand how tariffs work. And that was a big disappointment for me, because it should be very, very easy for somebody like Biden, given his experience, to tell the American people, look, this guy wants to pass tariffs. He still doesn't even understand what a tariff is. A tariff is a tax on the country and on those companies, right? The government collects that tariff. And then that international company passes the cost of that onto the consumer. So if you're looking at a $30,000 Toyota, you're looking at a $33,000 Toyota. Okay, So that provides a negative pressure to avoid buying the Toyota and to switch your attention to buying a domestically made car. Go get yourself a Buick or a Chevy or whatever. Fine. But then you turn around and have these problems where, like, so that idea right there, that's a good idea. How many people can afford the cars that are made here? And it depends on how the tariff works, right? Do they charge a tariff on Dodge Ram trucks? They're assembled here. In fact, I think most of the Dodge Ram 3500s are assembled in Sterling Heights, Michigan, still. But it's owned by Fiat. They're essentially Italian-made trucks. It's an Italian automaker now. So, you know, with a global, you know, tariffs work pretty well when you can kind of like safely divide the difference between a domestically produced product and an internationally produced product coming over. But if you've got an overlapping like supply chain, are you just imposing the tariff based on the name? I mean, if you buy a Buick in Vista, I think, or an Encore, I think 85% of that car or 100% of that car is South Korean. But because it's nominally an American car, you don't pay that. But if it's a Toyota Tacoma, which I think is mostly American parts, but it's assembled in Mexico, you know, just I think at the Baja plant, I think their plant is right down in Baja, you have to pay a tariff on that. So how do you suss that all out? Or you buy a Nissan truck that's built down in, I think, Tennessee, Alabama, I think the Nissan plant is, but it's a Japanese company, so you pay an import tax on it, even though you're providing a disincentive, an economic disincentive for a vehicle that is produced within the United States that provides jobs to American workers building a foreign product. And you just made it harder for them to earn money at their job. Because what are you going to try to wear this out? Like, I don't have a problem with tariffs, and I don't have a problem with mercantile tactics in an economy. Work great for Japan, work great for South Korea, but it depends on how you use them. Some bozo coming out there and saying, I'm just going to put tariffs on whatever. Here, you know, this, that, and the other thing. Don't do that. If the United States has given up production of things like microwaves, refrigerators, and things like that, so like 90% of them are being produced by foreign companies. If you put a tariff on those things, people don't have a domestic alternative to go to, unless they go to some boutique one that's being, and they cannot possibly supply people's needs, all of Americans' needs. Nobody can, you know, nobody's going to be able to avoid. Well, I should say not nobody. Most people will not be able to avoid that tariff. They'll have to be wealthy to get some boutique thing made on the side. But if they're wealthy enough to do that, they're wealthy enough to just absorb the tariff price that the cost passed down to them. So it does nothing but all it does is make life more expensive and onerous for the poor.
Good. But it is so vile because Senator John Kennedy quoted some books. It's so vile that YouTube said, limited, this video may earn limited or no ad revenue. Oh, this actually, what frustrated me most about the debate was this. I'm gonna play.
What earned him limited ad revenue?
Senator John Kennedy quoted some books. It's so vile that
Oh, that, yeah, but that's because the one that the short that he did on with John Kennedy reading the bit from the books out of context was
said, limited. This video may earn limited or no ad revenue. Oh, this actually, what frustrated me most about the debate was this. I'm going to play this here.
First of all, I don't know that that's true. There are no shrewder or tough negotiators than the Chinese. Trump knows what he's doing in negotiation. Given some of the things that I've heard about that are going on in China, attributing shrewdness and toughness to them is probably a mistake. It's not going great. Trump knows what he's doing in negotiation. No, he doesn't. I mean, if you were going to have a negotiation with a guy who thinks that elective abortion can happen after the baby has been delivered, how can you expect to have an effective negotiation with a person who believes demonstrably untrue things and insists that they are so. Can you have a good faith debate with somebody who's a flat earther? I mean, you can. It doesn't follow that just because they're a flurfer doesn't mean they can't be right about the state of like the automotive economy or automotive manufacturing, or maybe they've got great ideas about material sciences or something like that, or they're a gardener. Who knows, right? If it's completely unrelated. But there's always going to be that one eyebrow that wants to go up when you think like, yeah, this guy I'm talking to thinks that the world is flat. And this other one over here thinks some strange things about, like, Donald Trump doesn't understand the concept of buoyancy in his basic idea about, like, there's a boat with an electric battery, and the electric battery for some reason is unshielded, and then the boat sinks, according to him, due to the weight of the boat and the weight of the battery, and there's a shark over there. You've got to choose death by electrocution from the boat that's too heavy to float and the shark. Like, if you made a boat with a battery in it, if the boat is constructed correctly, buoyancy is in effect and it will stay afloat. Like, that was to me was more gobstopping than the fact that, like, if that thing's exposed and it's electrocuting the water, he's going to get away from the electrical current by jumping closer to the shark. Like, you're still going to get a little bit toasted. I mean, there's an effect. So that's because the GOP and Trump hate the poor. It's weird given that almost the entirety of the wealth that collectively control was built in the backs of the low middle class. Yeah. The guy that wrote Art of the Deal doesn't know what he's doing. Do you know anything about that book, DeFree? Trump didn't write The Art of the Deal.
Number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they've raised $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, childcare, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, he had the law.
Yeah, that was.
I don't understand why they still try to do this. Like, the Democrats still think that if you get a candidate out there who can do the Al Gore thing and burp up the numbers, like, there's very few political candidates that can do this well. I think AOC is okay at this. The best one at it is Al Franken, and as far as I know, they're not really eager to run him out there after the issues that they had before. If it were a debate between Al Franken and Donald Trump, it would be embarrassing for Donald Trump. It would be like an advanced civilization, ancient alien kind of thing talking to early man kind of comparison. It would be weird. But Franken can usually rattle off numbers like this, but it would not be this bad. And this one I didn't understand either. If you bumped up, if billionaires are paying 8% of their 8% of their wealth in tax, and you bump it to 24%, it's not going to take 10 years to earn like $500 billion to pay down part of his deficit. Like, you're earning a shitload of money.
This is one of his major gaffes. But people focus on his gaffe about beating Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. That's not the real gaffe. The real gaffe is the substance he tried to say before that. And so I'm going to explain this.
No, I think the real gaffe was that when he said, we finally beat Medicare, and he seemed to know that he got it wrong, but didn't seem to know how to fix it. And then when they came back to give him an opportunity to talk about it, normally somebody quicker on their feet would be like, yeah, I misspoke in that last one. What I wanted to clarify was this. Because you can use your time to clarify something that you previously said. There were no rules against that. It didn't have to be constantly engaging with whatever crap Trump said, what Trump said. He could have gone back and fixed that. Not only did he not do that, I wasn't entirely convinced that he knew how he could. So that was disturbing to me. The fact that he was getting the math wrong, he did something wrong with the 8% to 24, 25%. I don't know what increase he's talking about or even how he's trying to charge this. Because when you're talking about charging billionaires taxes, you're usually talking about the rate on capital gains. You're not talking about income taxes. And he wasn't being clear with that. So
to the people from Missouri.
Largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period.
He says that Trump has the largest national debt in a 4-year period. On a 4-year period, it's a accumulation of four years worth of deficits. Deficits like the annual, but you can say 4 years.
Pine Creek might also belong in a home. His cognitive functions appear to be declining. The quality of the shorts is decreasing. Yeah, it's getting worse.
Deficits added to the debt. Now, technically, he's correct, but most Democrats, I don't think, know this. By the end of Biden's 4th year, he will exceed Trump's. He's on pace to exceed Trump.
Yeah, and he probably will. I mean, most of that is because of government spending due to the pandemic. But yeah, and up and this is a little bit like saying, you know, when Donald Trump would make the claim, I got more votes than any president ever back in 2020. That's half true. Up until that time, Donald Trump had the most votes ever, and then Biden beat him. So Biden and Trump, those two guys right there on that stage, represent two record holders. Biden's in first place. Trump is second for the most votes cast for political candidates in an election. PC writes, Donald Trump is once again promising to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, a nebulous goal that became one of his administration's splashiest policy failures. Yeah. They did manage to get rid of the, what was it? The requirement. So I don't think you are required to go on the exchange, which I always thought was kind of weird. They should have gone with the public policy option, which would have strengthened Medicare and Medicaid, but Obama biffed that. So, yeah. It was obvious Biden has note cards on the podium. I don't know if that was against the rules. They were allowed, I think, a piece of paper and a pen. I think they were allowed to take notes on something. That was part of the rules. So if he had jotted something down, well, this guy was, well, I don't know when he would have. He's usually looking over with his mouth agape. Let's all remember Jimmy Carter is still eligible for a second term. Yeah, there we go. And he actually, I think, currently is the most popular, with the exception of Michelle Obama, is the most popular Democrat.
Well, I said here, 3 years, it's fine. He's already exceeded Trump. But one can say the COVID years is kind of like maybe give him a pass. So we'll see.
Reps are good with a brokerage. We are not in favor of the government running doctors. I don't know what you mean by the first part. The government, in a lot of ways, does run doctors and that it regulates it. So do you like the fact that you can maybe, like if you go to a doctor and the doctor's a total quack, you can file a complaint against that doctor? Maybe have the state shut their license down, go after them hard? Without having to like spend, you know, thousands of dollars on suing them and trying to get them to, which they have medical malpractice insurance for. But you have the ability to complain usually to a state board and say, doctor did A, B, and C, and I think it was inappropriate. They can investigate that doctor, find out, it turns out they did in fact do that, and it wasn't appropriate. That doctor's not allowed to practice medicine here again. You don't want that?
But it's like 99%. I'm 99% confident that his deficit is going to be worse. And we're not in a recession. We were, I guess, technically in a recession for 2 quarters in 2021 because.
Yeah, the pandemic pushed us into a recession really quick. And then government spending kind of like, you know,
as a COVID
pulled up on
but
the
we
stick.
bounced like right back.
What
is the best Bible translation in your opinion as possible? Completely off topic, but thanks for the donation. My favorite version is the easy to read version that you can get on Bible Gateway. Easy to read version. Oh, it's beautiful.
Number 2, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy.
Yes. Tax cuts tend to benefit the very wealthy. You know why? Is there any Democrats here who can tell me why tax cuts benefit the very wealthy the most?
Yeah, because it's a proportionate thing. But it depends on the tax cuts you do.
Because they pay the most taxes.
But not proportionate to their wealth, not proportionate to their purchasing power. Pine Creek's not going to say that.
The people who pay the most taxes when there's a tax cut get the most benefit. That's just science.
And actually, they don't. They don't get the most benefit because that's a little bit amorphous. They would get the most back, but that doesn't necessarily mean much for them if we're talking about somebody who's really super wealthy. The amount of money that they get back, oh great, I've got this money, I can do that. You know, I can throw that at another beach house, or maybe get the boat rewaxed or something. I don't know.
when I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America.
DeFreak, first of all, I seen it myself. You saw it. Before Obamacare, only illegal aliens were getting free care in emergency room. After ACA, Americans were too. Incorrect. This is incorrect. I don't think you know how the ACA works. So illegal aliens, which is to say, usually they're usually asylum seekers. They were usually here legally. You can put that away. Most of the people that were here without a green card, they usually got stopped, got picked up, declared asylum, and they're waiting for a court date. We know that the majority of people like that are doing that. They don't have health coverage. Some of them have enough cash they can pay out of pocket. Many of them, if they had those kinds of emergency, in many cases, this happened during the Title 42 days during Trump and the first 2 years of Biden's administration, they'd get hurt on the wall. Would get corralled into areas where they'd get injured or get chased or something like that and get taken to emergency services. Can they afford to pay? No. So what would happen? They would try to bill those people. Those people wouldn't be able to pay. Hospital wouldn't collect. It would go to collections. Hospital services would write it off. It wasn't free. Right? It's just individuals not being able to pay and then not paying it. Americans did not get the ability to do that in emergency rooms just because they got ACA after the ACA passed. When the ACA passed, you had to get insurance. You had to. You were required to go to the exchange and purchase an insurance plan through it. I know because I had to do it. I was currently working as a contractor. I wasn't covered. When that went into effect, I went onto the exchange, found a plan, and bought it. It wasn't difficult. And the plans at that time were much more affordable and paid out much better than they currently do now. Now they've gotten kind of weak since Republicans have been in and since they removed some of the incentives for it, the requirements. But you did not just get a free pass to the emergency room because the Affordable Care Act got passed. That might be one of the most ignorant things that has ever been typed in my comments. Read a book. Reagan's healthcare mandate, also worth reading.
And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's true. Thanks for the donation, Rex, for $4.99. Doug, how much do you go into Pareto Moscow's elite theory, if any? What's your take? If not,
they would outright reject people, Americans. Emergency rooms can reject people if they're full. They can tell them that they have to go someplace else. And if they don't have the resources to send them, they might help them find transportation. If they're full up, they can't provide treatment. They try to help them find treatment elsewhere. But they would reject, quote unquote, illegal aliens as well. Any of those asylum seekers or people that are here legally, but otherwise can't pay, they went to the ER, it'd be the same situation. This is stupid. You're trying to say that they would provide treatment to somebody who was here without a green card before they're going to provide treatment to an American citizen means that you do not understand basic healthcare ethics and the Hippocratic Oath. Do you know what that is, DeFreak? Do you know what the Hippocratic Oath is, and do you understand how healthcare ethics work? Asking because I'm concerned, because I think you can vote and do what J.L. Warren says here. Sounds like you've got the money. Kindle that.
Please develop a take, haha, and give us your W. I have no take on the Pareto Moscow's elite theory. Other than that, I lean towards populism tends to be better than elitism. Does that answer your question? I hope so. Well, thank you for the donation, either way.
Surprised. Doug is a classist. Yeah. Okay. The private market has determined who are winners and who are losers, and those who have money have won, and those who do not have money have lost. Throwing money at the losers is just throwing good money after bad. Rewarding those with money with even more money is how you attain and secure a more virtuous society. We don't have to worry about income inequality or discrepancies in purchasing power or any of those other kinds of things. I'm waiting for him to on the pipe.
So the top 5% pay 65.6%. I think the top 10% is close to 80%.
That's true. The top 5% pay 65.6% of all federal taxes. However, not all taxes are federal.
And when we talk about the top 50% of federal taxpayers, the top half, you're talking.
Right, but the tax burden on individual people is much lower for the wealthy than it is for people who are working. For instance, a cop earning anywhere from like $55,000 to $65,000 a year, I think. It might be higher in certain states, lower in others. But let's say they're earning anywhere around $50,000 to $60,000 a year. Proportionally, they're going to be paying about 28%, 27% of their income. Is that's taxable, right? So that's their tax rate, about 28%. If a billionaire is paying on capital gains and has certain write-offs and stuff in place, they might be paying anywhere from 8 to 12%. I think 12.5% is what Mitt Romney pays on his capital gains, and he doesn't have an income. So his income is his capital gain. So that's pretty much his rate is 12.5%. If he were paying 28%, it would still not hardly have much of an effect at all on his ability for purchasing power, his capacity to, he wouldn't, at that kind of wealth, you'd barely notice the difference. Yes, it will show that the top 5% pay 65 points. Then even the top 5% pay even more. If you have an unequal economy, you will see those tax rates happen. That's the point. That's an argument for leftists. If you have a lot of wealthy people who are taxed a little and they still make up that much of the federal income tax, that means you can barely collect anything from your working poor, because they are, by definition, working and poor. This is not a good thing. It's like, well, if they're paying, but they shouldn't have to pay for that. They only make up 1% of the population, but they make up like what, 80% of the wealth at this point?
And like 97%. So half of Americans, half of households pay almost zero federal income tax. They got no skin in the game federally, no skin in the game.
We Americans are screwed. We have a 183-year-old president who continues to support genocide and an orange moron who wants to be dictator. I mean, technically, there's nothing wrong with that. However, despite my disagreements with the Biden administration about how they're handling the Israel's invasion and destruction of Palestine and the Palestinian people, I will still not voting for him because I believe that his administration is going to be a lot more subject to changing course than Trump would.
And yet they can vote to decide how much to tax other people. Some might say that's borderline unethical and immoral. I'm not saying that, but some people might say that.
He just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers. They've raised.
That's why most reps see ACA isn't bad. Finance is fine. The actual medical decision shouldn't be up to a bureaucrat. DeFreak, I have absolutely no idea what the hell you're talking about. That doesn't make any sense at all. If you're not interested in your medical decisions being up to a bureaucrat, are you against the notion of people having private insurance?
$500 million.
Okay, this is where I almost had an aneurysm during the debate. If we only tax the billionaires 24% instead of 8%, again, I didn't fact check the 8% number, but I know the average for the top 10 percentile is like 28%. So he's saying it's 8. If we only tax them from 8 to 24, we could make how much? He said 500 billion over a 10-year period. Okay, so Democrats, please be honest with me, please. 500 billion over 10 years is 50 billion a year, yes? Carry the one. Yeah, 50 billion a year. And he said that would wipe out Trump's accumulation of deficits, his debt over his 4 years, which was 5.4 trillion.
I think he said it would help. I don't think he said it would take care of the whole thing.
5.5 trillion. And then he said we could if we tax the billionaires, we could wipe out Trump's debt and pay for these other things.
$1 billion, I should say, in the 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure
Yeah,
that continue.
we could wipe out his debt and do all these other things.
Yeah, I don't understand why. I mean, I don't agree with Pine Creek the way he's kind of presenting this, but I don't understand why Dems even process this way, because they can finance those programs anyway. The federal government can always deficit spend anyway. The idea of generating enough money to wipe out the debt isn't necessarily that big of a deal, based on the way federal debt works. Doug actually has a spreadsheet where he keeps track of the yearly the national debt, which I think is hilarious because what normal person would do that? And it's even got it like connected to the president that was in charge at the time. So
Now, I hear people on the left say Trump does nothing but lie, 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 lie. Is this a lie? This is why I like numbers, because numbers you can basically, it's really hard to.
no, you can still lie with numbers, mostly because it depends on what you're doing with your money, right? Like you can't lie with them. Yeah, but you can hide a lot of shit with numbers.
It's more objective. Let's put it that way. Is Biden lying here, Democrats, or is he just bad at math?
Exactly, Grumpy Gen X. Modern monetary theory suggests that the debt doesn't matter as long as it's tied to the country's GDP, since it's just investment in the future of the country. Yeah. And that's actually held pretty well, especially for people making some investment decisions, people that I know.
Come on. And the thing is, people believe this crap. They believe if only we tax the rich, all our problems will be solved.
Yeah, I don't believe that either, because it's not entirely revenue based. And I think when I've actually mentioned that to Doug, he just sort of looks at me like I'm shocked. Taxing the wealthy so that you can pull in a lot of revenue so that you can then turn around and spend it isn't really entirely necessary. But the purpose of taxing the wealthy is a way of actually like kind of clawing back capital, or sort of reversing some of the facts that like in our country we allow for an enormous amount of income inequality. And they're probably going to object to the language. Oh, what do you allow for? Here, you should be able to earn as much money as you want. Well, the problem with doing that is that one of the things that happens, the more you earn, the more you can own. And the more you own, the more it starts to affect the rest of the public. Like if you own a giant company or a giant manufacturing plant, and it begins to have detrimental effects on the population around you. So I can earn as much as I want. And now that I own this big thing, I can do whatever I want with it. Well, okay, whatever you want with it is actually poisoning people, let's say. It's churning out an enormous amount of air pollution. It's churning out a certain amount of water pollution. So you want all of the gains, but you want to externalize all the costs that you've accrued. If you were doing this in the context of a commonwealth, you wouldn't have been able to get away with this. But the fact that you acquire an enormous amount of land and an enormous amount of like some kind of profit generating equipment or something like that, both of these things are called capital. The effect that capital can have on society around you, you can externalize all that cost onto the rest of the people around you. So you can maximize your gains, but you're also minimizing your liability. You're maximizing their liability and minimizing their gains. Now they have to pay for the stuff that you provide. That's probably not a cool thing to do. I would say that that's kind of unethical. The idea here with a lot of the way these guys talk about this kind of stuff is they want the ability to earn as much as possible. They do not want to be held responsible for all that they attain. They want to be able to do whatever they want with it. Essentially what they want to be is a baby. They want everything and they don't want to be responsible for it because they're childish. The one thing I'm going to do here, I'm going to post my StreamYard link into this in case anybody would like to come on and chat with me. Keep in mind, if I think you're on here to be like especially weird or something like that, I might not let you in. Oh, Tangelo, I'm thinking of you. Old Doug here is getting kind of boring. So
all the billionaires.
No pressure to come on. You don't have to. Some people are not comfortable being on live, but if you do want to come on, yell at me, talk and chit chat about something, make a point on camera, let me know.
Wealth in the United States. What did he say? There was 1,000 billionaires in this country.
I think he said it was something like 1,000 billionaires. Yeah.
So let's say they each had $1 billion. That'd be $1 trillion. But some of them have like 200 billion. Some of them have 3 billion. But you could just take all their wealth.
Is this the former Canuck turned into a right-wing idiot? Yeah. I don't think he turned into. I think he's always been right-wing. Trump's false or misleading claims total 30,573 over 4 years. That's from the Washington Post.
Confiscated. And you would, I don't think you would still have enough to pay off our national debt.
Yeah, but taxes were higher. Paychecks were bigger under Trump. Easy on the butthurt. Who's showing any butthurt here? My problem with Trump is that he lied all the time. And also my paycheck went up, I think, $7, but my tax return went down by 1,000. So I had the lowest tax returns during that time because of what I was earning at that time. I know relatives and friends who, instead of getting a return, they expected smaller returns. They ended up owing anywhere from $250 to $700, thanks to what his tax could, because he reduced the number of brackets. So it was, if you hit one, the effect on your you hit that tier, the effect was going to be a lot more jarring if you were at the lower end of that tier rather than being at the higher end of that tier. So if you just squeak over the line, I think he reduced it to like 3 or 4 versus the 7 that they think they had before, 6 or 7, something like that. But he wanted those reduced down to like 3 or 4. If you have a progressive income tax system like that, the more smaller steps you have in there, the less jarring the effect is going to be when you just cross the line, depending on your income. If you go from one, I've tried to explain this before, if you go from one tier, just under the one tier, to just under the next tier, the effect in terms of what it's taking out of you isn't going to hurt as bad. You're going to notice it. But because you had a raise high enough, it'll kind of offset that. But if you've only got 3 tiers and the jumps are big, and you go from the top of tier 1 and you're right under the limit, and then you just get enough to put you into the next tier, you haven't started earning that much more, but your liability is much higher, you're going to feel that. And people that hit that effect not only did not get the tax return they were going to get, they ended up owing. And they were, to use your word, blessed be he, butthurt. And many of them were conservatives. I remember watching their TikTok videos and like, what did you expect? He's going to make the steps even bigger. The jumps are going to get bigger. I paid $2,200 last year. Yeah. My sister-in-law and her husband, the Trump tax cuts, what they've done, it's been horrible for them given their income range.
Anyhow, I want to play this. I haven't watched all of it, but it looked like it was fun. So some young kid came on. What's his name? Harry Sisson. And he's
not true, Jefferson. Only the balance over the new bracket is taxed higher. Okay. So in that case, you wouldn't want to jump to the very, so from like one part to the next part. Maybe that is the case. Okay. I might have that reversed. All I know is that for whatever reason, I remember reading that the reduction in the number of brackets meant that the jumps were going to be more, potentially more shocking to individual taxpayers. And they seem to be that way. I was lucky enough that I didn't hit either one of those increases in a way that was that bad, but my tax returns did go down compared to the years that I paid before. So yeah, I would be interested in hearing that. The balance over the new bracket is taxed. Well, no, that I do know, but that would. Yeah, I guess that would make sense. Well, wait a minute. The whole thing gets tacked at the new branch, right? If you hit that. So I guess it would be the windfall if you end up making too much money. I'll have to look into that because I'm not sure about that. I think the way a lot of people think about it, Max S, is that like once you jump from one bracket to the other, if you were earning say $50,000 and you're getting taxed at 15%, you jump to another one that's at 20%. Your $50,000 a year is being charged. All of it is being taxed at 20% rather than the 15%. But I think what you're saying is progressive taxation. Your $50,000 is getting taxed at 15%. Then whatever you earn in addition to the $50,000 to 65. Say you earn $65,000, the $15,000 is getting taxed at 20%. So depending on what you earn, it's probably going to make a difference. So, and I think that explanation is more accurate. If that is, let me know. Right. When you jump up a new bracket, the taxes on just that income gets taxed at the new rate. Yeah, that's right. I got that wrong. Let's see here. In Germany, you can forfeit income if you are just on the edge of a tax jump where you would pay more taxes and the net income is lower. That's interesting. That's a hell of a mechanism. The tax law's 20% pass-through deduction, which was skewed in favor of wealthy business owners, has largely failed to trickle down to workers in those companies who aren't owners. That I've heard complaints about, yeah. But I will admit I don't entirely understand how that works. Yeah, you're right. I blanked on how progressive income tax works, but I do know. I remember reading an analysis of the fact that his whole push was like, "Well, we'll just have 3 brackets and that'll be enough." And it's like some economists came out and they're like, for progressive taxation, it's actually better to have more, to have it spread out a little bit more. But for whatever reason, like, just keep it simple. But usually when I hear like a really wealthy person say keep the taxes simple, it's like charge me nothing and charge them everything. So
he loves Biden.
Harry Sisson. Harry,
it's not to love.
you think Biden won last night?
1%.
Yeah, no, I did, definitely. On the substance of the conversation.
Pierce has, okay, that's Cenk and that's Hassan. And then this guy. Okay. I have a feeling that this guy is going to upset this guy. So let's see.
Biden won. His policy was pragmatic. It was logical. And Donald Trump just lied the entire time. Is incapable of telling the truth.
You know what's funny about that? When he says Trump lied the entire time. Entire time. He didn't say one thing that was true. Not one thing that's true. Now, can I say that you have lied? For the people from Missouri, I want to ask you a question. Is lying, no, actually, for the people from San Diego, if you're listening, San Diego, California, is lying the same as telling something that's untrue, a mistruth? Answer, no. And if you go, what?
Oh, so some of those times Trump was just wrong. Like Doug is when he's talking about trans issues. He's not lying. He's not misrepresenting things that he's heard or conveying. Like, so when I was talking about taxes, was I lying or was I just wrong? I was just wrong. I admitted that I was wrong because I brain farted on the structure of marginal tax rates and progressive taxation. But I wasn't lying. I wonder if he's going to post a thing like, "Oh, here's Jefferson lying about how taxes work," and then I'll have to be like, "High school debate rules, bro. I was just incorrect. Just like your favorite candidate can't understand that you can't have an elective abortion after the pregnancy's over."
No, of course. When you say something that's not true, you're lying.
No, you could just be mistaken. I agree with that. Was Trump mistaken about abortions occurring once the child's been born?
Really? A child says 2 + 2 = 5. They're lying. Thanks, Rex.
Well, he's a little liar.
Please check out our Elite Theory at your leisure. Oh, that's why you're giving me money, Rex. You want me to promote something for you? I would appreciate your point of view. Okay. I will make note of it.
Yeah, this is not a strong defense. I agree, Michael D. Doug here basically admitting Trump is too stupid to know truth from fiction, using that as an excuse for Trump lying. Trump's lying nonstop. Exactly. Well, I'm going to vote for him because, I don't think he's a liar. I just think he's dumb. So it's not his fault. So maybe he would have benefited from contact with his aides during the debate, like Lawrence O'Donnell had suggested.
Incapable of actually.
JL Warren's got a good comment in there. I'm not going to highlight it because it's only going to make things worse. This is a good comment though, JL. Doug sure wants to suck the Cheeto dust off Trump.
Actually laying out policy. He didn't talk about how he's going to make the American people's lives better. He just, said that, January 6th didn't happen. He talked about the election.
Jumping in the pool. Love the stream. Thank you. Love you all in the chat. I'll be listening. Everyone stay safe and help someone less fortunate than yourself if you're able. Take it easy, John, and enjoy cooling off. I wish I could do that here. The humidity is like 85%, but the sun is shining. The dew point is incredible.
Said that overturning Roe is a great thing and forcing 10-year-old girls.
He said January 6th didn't happen? Again, is that...
He lies about that. Not lies. He's wrong about that. So I've actually heard Pine Creek do this kind of thing, like, "Oh, here comes the broken clock, right? Is right twice a day kind of thing." Yeah, he just kind of blows that off.
Is that a lie from this little kid?
Little kid. Wow, man, the more he gets into this, the more he starts sounding like all these other right-wing apologists. He's starting to sound like Darth Dawkins.
To give birth is a fantastic thing.
You're a snot-nosed little punk.
That was Donald Trump's debate. So on the substance of the conversation, Joe Biden absolutely prevailed.
Right, but the problem you've got is I saw the CNN fact check.
Did Trump say that is actually happening, or did Trump say that is suggested in certain states? Trump said that that's what Democrats wanted. That Democrats, along with Roe v. Wade, it allows for what Dems want, which is for a woman to give birth to a kid and then in discussion with her doctor, terminate it after she's given birth. That's what he said during the debate and kept insisting that this is what Dems want And this is what Roe v. Wade wants or allows, or whatever word he used. They're the radicals. They're the ones that are extreme on this. No one has ever argued for that. Roe v. Wade is a legal argument. The establishment of it, the precedent, basically made it recognized as a constitutional right based on a woman's privacy, based on a right to privacy that's granted to us by our constitutional rights. That decision should be up to her and in consultation with her healthcare providers. It has never said anything about giving her the ability to have her kids killed. Only the termination of a pregnancy. And the federal government and the states limited that based on the viability of the pregnancy. So an elective abortion, your right to an elective abortion, your ability to choose that, is limited based on the what is considered kind of consensus medical viability of that pregnancy. Once you get into the third term, unless there's a need for a medical abortion, medical necessity for the termination of the pregnancy, you don't have the right to just elect to terminate in the third term. That's just not been a thing. I don't know why so many people are ignorant. Well, I do know why so many people are ignorant about this, because it involves women's health care. Yeah. So yes, Tom, they're not exaggerating when they say this. That's why I thought it was weird that Trump was running with that. It's a misrepresentation of what a North Carolina government was talking about, how doctors would deal with a baby not viable after birth. Precisely. And they try to chalk this up into something to do with women having the ability to electively pursue termination of a pregnancy. If they're dealing with a non-viable fetus, and the woman has delivered that infant, but the infant is stillborn, what do? It's not viable after birth. That it is not the same thing as, well, this gives a woman the elective choice to just have the kid killed by the doctor because she doesn't want to raise it. That is the misrepresentation. That has not ever been a thing. That is not a thing now. And that is not a thing anyone is pushing for now, with the exception of what? Maybe anti-natalists? Is that an anti-natalist position?
Because on Joe Biden's public statements last night, and it was just untruth after untruth after untruth.
What? CNN said Biden told untruth after untruth. Do we have that here? I think we.
They might have, because Biden tried to say what insulin was $450 a month. It was around $450 annually, which is still insane because insulin's been around forever. But he was trying to say it was costing the average senior citizen $450 monthly. The actual figure is $450 annually. Now, I would ask Doug, is that a lie or was it a mistake? Did he just get it wrong, or did he misrepresent it? I think you're right there, Gen X.
We do. Thanks, Myron. Yeah, you're doing better. Okay, let's see what Biden said that was not true. Uh-oh. The YouTube overlords.
Tonight, notwithstanding, there is the crucial question.
In a while, who didn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. Troops have, of course, died on his watch.
Yeah, I caught that too. Biden said that there's no troops who died in his decade, in his century. He said century first.
He's put in a $15 per shot cap on insulin and Medicare. It's a $35 a month cap. He said it's a $200 cap on overall drug spending in Medicare.
Yeah, it's $2,000.
It's $2,000 a year. He said the border now has fewer crossings than when Trump was in.
But see what it says: false or misleading claims. They're false. So does false mean he lied, or does false mean he's wrong? Now, if they're now they can be taken as misleading if he's representing the facts incorrectly. And that is on him, even if he's just wrong. It's still on him for being misleading because he's misrepresenting the truth here. Not intentionally. He's not lying, but he's getting all these facts wrong. You have to determine what you think is going on there. But if you are Trump and you're trying to say that, no, actually what the Dems want is for you to be able to kill your baby right after it's born, not a thing. If he thinks that's a thing, you'd have to ask him, like, dude, and I don't think anybody's ever asked him this. Hey, why do you think that's real?
In office, that's generally not true.
Generally not true? Generally not true?
He said, or at least strongly suggested, unemployment was at 15% when he took office. It was actually 6.4. He said Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Trump doesn't. He said
Yeah, Trump's been wishy-washy on Social Security. Generally, he's been for it. Red Fang says, what up? Good to see you, Red Fang.
Billionaires pay 8.2% in taxes. It's much higher. He said Trump told
I think it's 28.
Americans.
I don't think it's 28. I think it's around. I mean, it depends on the type of billionaire you're talking about, but I think it's between 15 and 18% because of capital gains.
To inject bleach amid COVID. We know Trump made foolish comments about scientists studying disinfectant.
He didn't say that what Biden said. AP News did this too. Biden said that he told us that we should just inject bleach into our arms or something like that. He didn't say inject bleach. What he said is he wondered if the scientists could somehow get a disinfectant in the lungs. They get it in the lungs and really clear it up. You know, it was just as crazy. It's just that everybody like semantically gets this incorrect.
Injection, but didn't frame it as advice to people. And Biden said the Border Patrol endorsed him.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too, because he said Border Patrol endorsed him, and law enforcement agencies don't. Because Trump tried to say this, they've all endorsed me too. Trump was making claims like that. Law enforcement agencies don't endorse. It's their unions that do.
Right when Biden said that, the Border Patrol union tweeted, "We do not support Joe Biden." Now
right. So in the scenario, the baby wasn't stillborn, but had problems of like not having lungs or their organs on the outside of their body, and they'd only live for a short period of time. There's situations like those rare situations where a child's born with like only part of their brain or empty, like, or, you know, whatever. And they're very rare. Yeah, but it's just that kind of anti-birth control, anti-abortion rhetoric trying to say like, well, this is what they want. They want to give everybody the right to be able to just decide electively to like, well, I gave birth. Now I want this child to end. And it's like, that's not what's going on here. The procedure that's happening in the case like that is a medical emergency. Is this life, this new baby without lungs, with only half a brain, you know, with you know, these defects, are they going to live? And they're going to suffer for a few hours and die. There was one case where a woman had a situation where she thought her child was active because she felt it kicking all the time. It was actually having seizures inside her. And she ran into a situation where wherever she was from, she wasn't able to get it because it had made it into the third trimester. She had to go, I think, to Colorado. They had to fly her to Colorado, which was potentially dangerous given her pregnancy and other things that she was having with the pregnancy. They got her there. They performed the operation. And I think the child died during the procedure. I think they did a C-section, but it was essentially like all that's going to happen if this baby is born is that it's going to have seizures for the next several hours and just expire on its own. So that was, yeah, it was a horrible tragedy. And they had been planning on that. That child was planned. They wanted to have it. She and her husband had been trying for it. She did not want an elective abortion, but she had to get a medical abortion, and the rules against elective abortions overlapped onto the medical ones, and she couldn't have it. Remember that distinction, a lot of anti-abortion advocates said, oh, you don't have to worry about that. Medical abortions, in the event of saving the life of the woman or the child or whatever, that's categorically separate from women just wanting elective abortions. But the way the rules get written, they do not. They end up creating liability concerns for the hospitals, and so they avoid providing that care.
Did support the legislation, the bipartisan legislation that he, yelled at Trump for.
What was the difference between monthly and annually? The cost of insulin. Biden kept saying it was $450 monthly for insulin, but the average cost to senior citizens was $450 annually. And he was wrong about the cap too. It wasn't 50. It wasn't capped at 15. It was capped at 35.
For not endorsing as well, but not that they endorsed him for president.
No, its union supported the border bill he supported, never endorsed him himself. In fairness, the president did appear.
Yeah, the Border Patrol supported his bill, which the Republicans, whiffed on.
To clarify that one, now the Trump list, it is way, way longer. So deep breath. He said some Democratic states,
of course, CNN,
allow people to execute babies after birth, an egregious lie that is illegal.
Some Democrats.
And that is a lie. He knows better. That is a lie. There's no facts to support this. It's not like, well, Trump must just be mistaken about this. Oh, how can you be mistaken about a process that's never happened? It's complete fantasy.
States allow people to. Did he say that? See, this is the thing.
He did. Oh boy, what are we going to get?
What Republicans and people like me say on the topic of abortion is we try to get at the values. So if I were to say
Trump is not getting at the values when he says that there are people out there that want to kill their kid after they give. This is the kind of abortion that Dems want, that you can kill your kid when it's a kid. You can terminate a pregnancy when the pregnancy is no longer a factor. The child has already been born.
Do you think a woman who has not been raped, who has not had incest, who is healthy and the baby's healthy,
Not had incest?
do you think at the 8-month term, they should be allowed to abort?
An elective abortion? No. And there are restrictions on this for elective abortion. No, because the child's viable. Well, I should keep the terms distinct because we want to be clear. The fetus is viable in the 8th month, provided that there's nothing going wrong. She became pregnant. She has carried the child for 8 months. The fetus is viable. It's healthy. All things considered, she's going to be able to give birth to this child, or they're going to be able to perform a C-section. Child's going to be fine. Mom's going to be fine. Does she have the right to just electively decide at that point that she wants to terminate the pregnancy? Women are barred from doing that. 3rd trimester abortions have not been on the table. The kinds of abortions that they're talking about from the medical community are, is it going to be legal for an abortion of a 3rd trimester child to be an option in the event that the fetus isn't viable, or that there is risk to the long-term health or life of the mom? And the way the anti-abortion legislation gets written, the language written to make sure that women don't have the ability to electively choose to terminate their pregnancy in the 3rd term ends up prohibiting a medical professional's ability to recommend and perform a medically necessary abortion to save the life or preserve the long-term health of the mom. That is the problem.
Now, if you're a Democrat or a left progressive, and your knee-jerk reaction says, well, that never happens, you're missing the point of the question. The point of the question is to make you very uncomfortable. That's the point.
Why would it make me uncomfortable? Elective abortion is not a thing in the 3rd term. Like medical abortion is the thing that usually kicks in. Elective abortion is usually within those first 2 trimesters, up to about 6 months. And most of the abortions that occur, but elective abortions, I should keep that consistent, happen within the first 4 months. And within the first 3 months, I believe all of them can be induced medically.
The question. And so the question is, would you side on the baby side at 8 months, or the woman's right to choose? Declared for the world.
The baby side. But I don't think that's kind of a no-brainer. You have a healthy fetus. You have a healthy mom. She's carried the fetus for 8 months. There's no medical reason why the pregnancy needs to be terminated. She should continue carrying the child to term. She's carried it into the 3rd trimester. The fetus is viable. This is a weird argument. You might find people on the fringe who are trying to say, and anybody out there who thinks I'm wrong about this, please let me know. But my understanding of this generally has been that the restriction for elective abortion has been within the first 2 trimesters. And generally what's been happening from people who are usually on the anti-abortion side is to get rid of the 2nd trimester completely. At least winnow that down. So the elective abortion can only happen within those first 3 months. Now what they're talking about is you only have the option for an elective abortion within the first 6 weeks. So what Doug's talking about here really has never really been part of the discussion. The only reason it's part of the discussion is because he's been bamboozled by right-wing talking points that have convinced him that there is a prevalence of third trimester elective terminations happening. And they're not.
To hear, and we have a caller. Oh, it's going to, I got a feeling it's going to be, well, we'll see. Let me.
Induced medically? I don't know if you're inducing a pregnancy medically, that you induce the pregnancy and the woman gives birth to the child. If you're talking about a medically induced like termination of a pregnancy, it depends on the procedure and it depends on the status of the fetus, the growth. They will do what's called, what do they call them, DNC now or DNE? I can't remember which one's the new dilation and extraction. DNC, dilation and curettage or curettage.
Hey, can you hear me? It's going well, thanks.
Good, good, good. Actually, I came on to ask you something. How do you feel about liberals supporting Palestine? Because to me, it just makes no sense whatsoever, man.
Well,
Why?
I can tell you why they support Palestine. Why some of them at least do.
Oh, this should be good. Buckle up, folks.
I mean, I know the obvious reason, but I'm not going to say it live.
Well,
Why? Wait. He knows that there's an obvious reason, but he can't say it live.
I'm not gonna. Well, you're not gonna say the obvious reason why. The obvious reason they would say is because they don't want to see the killing of babies, right?
Well, I know. Well, we know that's not true.
But here's the real reason I think the progressive left support Palestine. I think there's a lot of people on the left who support Israel, but the main reason is because they view the Palestinians as oppressed, and they view Israel as the oppressor. And
in the case of the Israeli government, and not because this is going to get goofy because he's going to be talking about Israel versus Palestinians. This is really the Israeli government and how it treats Palestine as either a political entity or a group of people, because it barely makes a distinction. As far as dealing with another government, it just says they're being run by Gaza, and as far as the citizens go, they're all terrorists. That seems to be the way the IDF and the conservative side of the Israeli government treat people. What he's trying to say is, the reason that you're siding with them is because they're oppressed. They actually are oppressed. So the settlements and stuff that the Israeli government has allowed violate international law. And what they normally do is they'll go in there. It is an apartheid state. They will go in, settle these places. They provide incentives for Israeli citizens to go and build houses, and they provide them with economic incentives. Build a house in occupied territories, which they're not supposed to be in, and they turn them into these neighborhoods and stuff, which get heavily policed. The Palestinians that are allowed to live there that aren't displaced, some are displaced directly, and they are sent to either the West Bank or they are sent to Gaza, which are firmly controlled and secured by the Israeli military, especially Gaza. It is a little bit hyperbolic to call it an open air prison, but just barely. They have checkpoints and everything. It's complete. Their flow in and out of Gaza is entirely controlled by the Israeli military. The Palestinian citizens that live in those occupied territories have a curfew that Israeli citizens do not. It's a complete second-class citizenship status. And when the Israeli government gets upset about something that Gaza does, they tend to take out their frustration on Palestinians generally and drop and carpet bomb Gaza, which usually kills lots of men, women, and children, mostly women and children. So, because a lot of the elderly are already gone. It's 90 days in Italy, 63 days is the limit for the drugs-induced abortion. I think it's around the same here for a medical, like a medicine or drug-induced abortion. I think is between 2 and 3 months. After a certain point, it's not safe to do it, and then you have to have some kind of procedure done. And I think that's either the end of the 3rd month, going into the 4th. I can't remember what the cutoff is for a medicine to be, an abortifacient to be used. It's with some knowledge behind God.
Their lives in the United States are so bad and pathetic themselves. They feel like because they don't have skills, or maybe they're stupid, or they have some illnesses, they feel that they have the right to, to have a better life, like their neighbor down the street that they're jealous of. So anyhow, they
what kind of cope is this from him? Who hurt him as a child that he talks about either left wing or liberals like this? Maya says Israel does not permit Palestine to have an army. which is true, which means that technically citizens are acting like soldiers. If they're basically, you've got Gazan terrorists, essentially. Israel is now treating all citizens like soldiers, even pregnant women in churches. Yeah. And it's easy for them to sort of justify that. Well, they don't have an army. All you've got over there is a terrorist organization, which they voted for back in 2006, which, most of the people that are currently alive never voted for Gaza. Not that it would make much of a difference anyway. Yeah.
They see themselves in the people in Gaza. And so therefore we oppressed people have to unite and go against the oppressor, the big bad Israelites. And
it's nothing about that. If you see one group of people disproportionately applying, essentially using force in a disproportionate way, you can call that out. If you have a group of terrorists that came in on like they did the terrorist attack in Israel, which was nasty as hell, if you've got military control over Gaza, you don't have to react with carpet bombs. You can send in paramilitary forces and treat this like a law enforcement thing. You can target specific groups and go after them. There is no reason to bomb places where civilians are going to be. You don't even have to assume that level of collateral damage. Israel doesn't even seem to care. And by Israel, I mean the Israeli government, along with the IDF, because the military is definitely populated by some wackos over there. 2 million Palestinian people living in something like 180 walled neighborhoods. Yeah. And they just get wiped out. 1 million people are estimated to be crammed into a tent city in the southern Gaza location. An area, yeah, I believe that's the Rafah area, and they weren't going to go in there, and they did anyway.
Also, this explains anti-Semitism as well.
As a leftist, I'm assuming he's talking to me. The reason that I am concerned about the plight of Palestinian people, given the current horrificness that's going on, is because I am living vicariously through them as someone that I believe is also fellow oppressed, which, as a white middle-aged guy earning a pretty good living in the United States, I do not consider myself oppressed. So that doesn't apply to me, at least, but that's just me speaking for myself. And I think he's trying to make this personalized. He's like, this is why I think psychologically they're doing it. That doesn't apply to me. And also because I'm envying my neighbor down the street. I don't envy any of my neighbors. Unless they've got like one of the third floor apartments, because their balconies are better. I need to think about that.
In history, the Jews have been one of the most persecuted people of all time. And the Jews seemingly have overcome. And this is a bad.
That was a bad look too, which did not get nearly enough attention. But it was interesting though, because like there were a couple celebrities that were doing this kind of thing, cheering on Israel's the IDF's bombings and stuff like that. They kind of got called out for it. But it was kind of interesting that like the military personnel and stuff would do that. They kind of keep that on the down low.
Bad thing for oppressed minorities to hear and see that they can go through slavery and they can go through the Holocaust and still have 50% of the Nobel.
Slavery? Is he taking those biblical accounts literally? What's Doug doing here?
Nobel Prize is a word to them.
Okay.
I mean that makes the oppressed people in the United States feel like, oh, maybe I can overcome too, but I don't want to. I just want people to give me stuff for free.
This is the most batshit crazy explanation at trying to, like, I know he's really trying to get into the heads of people psychologically and explain their motivations. This does not get anywhere near to why people care about this. It's basic proportionality. The news is trying to show this is a fight between, so Palestine is run by Gaza, and Gaza is basically a terrorist organization, and they attacked Israeli civilians, and then Israel attacked them back, and Israel has the right to do that. Well, okay. The Israeli government is extremely efficient, extremely high-powered, and they're funded by us. They're very well armed. Palestine isn't really a thing anymore. It's an ethnic group divided into Gaza and into the West Bank, and it's controlled by two different things. So the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, and then in Gaza you've got Hamas. I think I keep saying Gaza instead of saying Hamas. You've got Hamas. Hamas as a terrorist organization is not, let's say, not great, right? Like Frankly, they're the worst. They can just justify their control over the Gaza population by saying, even though they really don't control the population, the IDF does. Hamas is usually trying to say, well, we were voted in 2006. Okay, you're not democratic. Don't worry about it. Nobody cares. And so when Gaza has Hamas, right, and that's pretty much the only authority they've really got there, other than probably local community activities going on, Hamas ends up organizing a little terrorist outcropping. The IDF takes out their kind of war rhetoric and actual war efforts on the entire population of Gaza, as if they're a monolith. This is a problem of proportionality. This is not two states, Palestine versus Israel, or even two military scuffles between Palestinian military forces and the IDF. This is a terrorist group that nominally runs Hamas, nominally runs Gaza, strikes out against Israeli civilians, and Israel punishes the population of Gaza, and most of them are Palestinian civilians. I'm sure they've caught some of the terrorists, some Hamas actors and stuff like that while doing this, but they've also created an enormous amount of collateral damage. And again, this has nothing to do with the Palestinian Authority, which is the political group that runs things in the West Bank, which is separate from Gaza. So the fact that, like, I'm just in my fifis and incapable of thinking about this clearly, like I am thinking about this clearly. If a powerful military organization like the IDF, controlled by the Israeli government, has the capacity to control all movement in and out of a territory like Gaza, then they have the ability to send in their troops and paramilitary and law enforcement operations to go after members of Hamas within the territory. How do you justify airstriking a territory that small and that populationally dense when you're going after small mobile groups of Hamas fighters? You're going to kill civilians when you do that. I don't think that Doug understands this. For the IDF and certain parts of the Israeli military, the killing of civilians is the point. It's the point. If they were just interested in getting Hamas, they would do a targeted operation, but they're not. All their operations, a lot of the rhetoric that's been coming from military leaders in the IDF on top, is showing that they want eradication, removal, erasure of the Palestinian people, their culture, their presence in that territory. And even Jared Kushner was like, hey, you know what? IDF wins on this. Oceanfront property, baby. He's ready to invest. So you know it's bad. If Kushner is sniffing blood in the water, you know that situation is not good.
I get where you're coming from on that answer. It just makes no sense to me because they just don't know. They don't understand what's going on over at Palestine. If they did,
I think I understand it better than this caller does, because I think he believes that there's parity. It's Palestine versus Israel. That's not. If that's what you think, you're uninformed.
care about dead babies, then why are they pro-abortion? Or
belch. Okay.
If they care about gay, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm drinking a little bit. If they did
good, a drinker. Okay.
If they did care about women's rights, they wouldn't agree with what kind of rights Palestinian women have. I mean, let's be for real. Women in Palestine, they get treated like dogs. Everybody knows.
Yeah, they probably do. And by whom? Other Palestinians or by Israelis? They are literally second-class citizens in the occupied territories and in Gaza. They have the ability to pass from Gaza into Israel, but they're monitored. Their movements are watched. Their check-in and check-out time is noted by a military infrastructure. He's talking about, like, well, I'm sure these women have it terrible with their Palestinian / Hamas, because they might as well be the same husbands. Well, maybe not. But do you think maybe at this point they're more concerned about making sure they've got food? Maybe they can get one meal today for them and their kids. And they're currently actively being treated like crap as a matter of policy from the IDF that controls their moves and makes it very clear that if they step out of line, they can kill them and will. They are able and willing to kill them. This guy has not been paying attention to this and the way he's phrasing this. And I think Pine Creek's going to say something here. He's winding up the hand.
No,
Yeah, that's a great point. Like a lot of people who
Oh.
support Palestine in the United States are from the queer community. And if we were
A lot of people that support Palestinian people and their plight right now are Jewish, not only in the United States, but also in Israel. This has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. I love that Republicans hate identity politics, but turn everything into identity politics the first chance they get.
we were to pick them up, transport them into,
they would all get killed.
yeah, depending
all
on what
get
country you're
killed.
in. Yeah.
And I was gonna say that too. Yeah, they throw LGBT people off the buildings, and I just don't understand it. I'm just thinking, this is like Jewish people supporting Adolf Hitler, or KFC.
Why would they be support? They're not. They don't. You don't have to support Hamas to be critical of what Israel and the IDF have done to Gaza. That doesn't follow at all. Just doing a quick okay, here's a good one. Let me post this here in the chat. So I wanted to do a search on it. It's an article from Reuters, a fact-check video of people thrown from roof shows punishment by ISIS or IS, not Hamas. A video from at least June of 2015 reportedly showing members of the Islamic State, IS, hurling people off the top of a building in Fallujah, Iraq, has been falsely captioned as footage of executions by Hamas amidst the militant group's war with Israel in 2023. So they're showing footage from 8 years before. Graphic footage of two individuals throwing four people, one after the other, from the roof of a four-story building was shared on Facebook, archived with the caption, Hamas executes people by throwing them off a roof of a building. This is probably the one that I'm thinking that most people are thinking about, because this one has been recycled, at least in the last year, on social media. And there's a fact check for it. Like, oh, this is how they treat LGBTQ people. I don't even know if the people that were being executed by ISIS that was 2015 in Fallujah is when the actual footage occurred. The issue was probably not that they were members of the LGBTQ community.
He's supporting, chicken supporting KFC, man. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's
whatsoever.
interesting how the pro-Palestinian community in the United States are siding with Hitler on this one against the Jews.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's happening, right? Like they're saying the Jews, Israel is the big evil country.
Their military is currently a big evil. Yes, they have a problem. Usually the military is aligned more with like kind of the right wing branch of their political apparatus. That is it. They are actively engaged in evil actions. They are killing civilians when they don't have any reason to. Military advisors have gone in there and said they do not need to do this. They have full control over the access of people who come and go out of Gaza. Hamas is not a large group. If they're looking to target pockets of them in Gaza, they can send in paramilitary groups and target them with precision. But instead, they drop bombs. And then when civilians, the civilian death count comes rolling in, they're just like, well, we're defending ourselves. They were coming right for us. Like, this is weak shit. And then when we get confirmation from military officials talking about how they want them gone, Gaza shouldn't be there anymore, it never should have been a thing, Israel for Israelis only, yada, yada, yada. It doesn't matter how many times you see this kind of stuff. These guys just like kind of look the other way. I'm like, well, it's Palestine. This is war. It's Palestine versus Israel. Like that parity, that basic power parity that you would think happens between one country being at war with another is not the dynamic in Israel. It's just not.
They're the oppressor. Hitler was the big evil guy. The Nazis oppressing. So
actually,
the Palestinian supporters are siding with Hitler.
I heard that there's a lot of Middle Eastern countries, like the president of Iran. He is actually he was before he died in a plane crash. He was a believer in Hitler. He thought the Holocaust didn't even happen, dude.
I'm pretty sure he's talking about Arafat. Nobody's backing Arafat. This is the stupidest thing in the world. Like, Arafat was not a good guy. I'm not a supporter of Arafat. either now or then. I'm not a supporter of Hamas. You do not have to support Hamas or Arafat or any of their rhetoric to recognize what the IDF and the Israeli government are doing to Palestinian civilians, not members of Hamas. Palestinian civilians is a bad thing. This is not that complicated. It's nuanced, but not that complicated.
Like he was a confirmed Holocaust denier.
Hey, this is a side question, but if you were to meet a Holocaust denier and you talked with him or her, in your
dead
head,
for 20 years.
would you view them as deranged?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what does that have to do with somebody being critical of Israel?
Without a doubt. Are you kidding me? I mean, 6 million people. How can
Wasn't he recently talking about the recently deceased prime minister that died in a plane crash? Let me find out. Let's see here. Dies in plane crash. Arafat survived a crash in the Sahara. Raisi, I think, is who he's talking about, actually. What might have caused the helicopter crash that killed Iran's president? That was May 21st of 2024. That was an Iranian president. I can't find anything about a Palestinian other than a 1992 article that said that he survived a plane crash. Does anyone know of a Palestinian politician or official? And it wouldn't be Palestinian. It would either be a member of the Western Territory, Palestinian Authority, or it'd be a member of Hamas. Son of ex-senior Hamas commander dies in Gaza car crash. And then Iran's president and former foreign minister died in a helicopter crash. I don't think this guy knows what he's talking about.
you explain that? And there's a lot of proof out there. Oh, my grandpa saw it, man.
Do you think people who were born male and now say they're female, do you think those people are deranged?
Way to pivot, Doug.
Yes, 100%, yes.
Okay, you're consistent.
Yes. Why would that be consistent? No, I don't think they're deranged. It's nothing. One has nothing to do with the other. I think he's talking about Ibrahim Raisi. I think he is too, Fabio. I don't. That's the only one I can find. So.
I mean, look, I don't hate people for living their lives, do whatever they want, but keep it away from the children, you know?
Yeah, because children are our future, and if you treat them well and let them set the way, many beautiful things can happen. Is that the word?
Yeah. But
Sorry,
anyway,
I got the Whitney
man,
Houston quote wrong.
But anyway, man, I think the left is completely deranged and backwards on their support of Palestine, and it just doesn't make sense. If they truly cared about their values that they preach, then they wouldn't be supporting a bunch of people that would openly oppress them.
So you're saying,
like the Israeli military would. If you see a group, look, it's not about their actions against Hamas. It's the example that's being set here is the Israeli military's actions, the IDF's military actions against the civilian population. That's the problem. And then the comments that are coming out and showing that there are a lot of people in the IDF and in the Israeli government that are fond of and favorable towards ethnic cleansing or genocide. They want these people either dead or they just don't want them around anymore. You can be someplace else. Go to Egypt. Just don't hang out here. You can't. You're not going to stay with us. We want a Jewish ethno state in its entirety. That is not a recipe for good things to happen. How that is inconsistent with leftists does not track with me. Especially if leftists are, believe in things like the rule of law and equal treatment under the law. The idea of one group being able to, to basically completely segregate an entire group of people into basically being second-class citizens force them into a system that's essentially apartheid, and then target them for wanton destruction and death every time a terrorist group within their midst acts up and does something horrible, which they did, you've got a bad situation there. When that military has that kind of power, there's that kind of power imbalance. They have the capacity to be much more surgical and much more circumspect about what they do against Hamas, and they don't. They just elect for a great big punch. You know, just hit them with 2,000-pound bombs from the sky. I mean, actions speak louder than words. And then when people come out and say, you killed thousands of innocent people, and their reaction is a shrug, shit happens, while they're texting each other videos about how awesome it was and how they're going to eventually be free of them forever. They're just not going to be a thing. But we're the ones being inconsistent here. He's back. Pine Creek has stated this before. He's backing Israel because he believes in self-defense. Pine Creek doesn't understand that this is not self-defense.
Saying they're hypocrites mainly because of the abortion issue?
Mainly because of the woman issue, the gay issue, all types of issues, man.
Yeah.
It's all types of, it's not just the abortion issue.
It's all tied together. Yeah, it's all tied to the psychological issue that he was talking about. We all want to be oppressed. We all envy our neighbor. We want to drag everybody down to the same level of misery that we experience every day so that we can all kind of just wallow in a collective ennui and nothing ever gets done. That's what they really want. That's what's consistent here. Like, no, not a fair universal application of the rule of law, not a fair treatment under that law, but systems where it's perfectly okay to accept that one government with an incredibly powerful military can take on this kind of right-wing crusade against the civilian population because a terrorist organization within that population inflicts harm on their civilian population. This gives them the ability to justify a completely disproportionate attack, not specifically against Hamas, the organization that they feel needs to go, and to go against the ideology that Hamas represents, which is shitty, but to attack the population of Palestinians in total. Where's their principle then? The only principle then is, well, is for somebody lazy like Doug or the colleges be like, well, I mean, what's the difference? Hamas, Palestine, fuck it, Gaza, whatever. It's all the same thing. Hit them with everything you got. Just mow them down. That's like lazy fascism. I'm so glad that I don't have a heart condition or diabetes. People like this make me mad. Yeah, well.
I mean, still, I mean, I was just making that clear. I mean, a lot of leftists, they believe in abortion. I mean, if they care about dead children so much, then quit aborting your babies.
Oh, it's just that simple. If you care about kids, just don't abort them. Dude, the fuck are you talking about? Doesn't have anything to do with it. Nobody's killing their babies except for baby killers. What the fuck? People that care about abortion care about birth control. You can care about birth control and women's access to it as American citizens and as human beings, and care about the livelihood and welfare of kids. Those are not inconsistent things. The only reason that they seem inconsistent is because right-wing talking points have tried to tell you, like, this is inconsistent. You can't pretend to care about what kids' lives are like and their upbringing and their care, their education, any of these things. If you think that women have the right to go out, they have the right to control their own bodily autonomy, and they have the right to handle their birth control methods that include elective abortions. Taken into account that elective abortions are limited. They're limited. Women cannot, while they're going into labor, cannot go seek out an elective abortion. That is not something that a woman can legally do. Bear in mind that I said legally. I'm sure somebody's going to come back and be like, but that can be done. Yeah, I'm sure you could find some lunatic that's willing to take the woman's life, put her life at risk to try to terminate a pregnancy while she's giving birth. I'm sure that there's something sick like that happens, but it's not a point of public policy, and it's not legal. It's not what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, Mr. Pine Creek, thanks for having me on again, man. It was nice talking.
Well,
to you.
you've been on
before?
Yeah, I joined your Discord and I friended you.
Oh, okay. Myron, why'd you tell me? This guy's smart. You should have.
My name's Noah. I came under as Fat Ass Dogs before. That's what everyone
Fat ass dogs.
calls me.
Okay. Why fat ass dogs?
I don't know, but
I think it might be a kink.
I have a picture. I have some pictures I want to share you. I actually met Congressman
No, don't do
Matt
that.
Gaetz a few weeks
Oh.
ago. Yeah, I was at this convention where I got to see Trump, and I was in the front row. I just wanted to show you some pictures if possible. On
How many
Discord.
people were there?
Thousands of people were there. The room at least had three. It was a full stadium room, and all the seats were filled.
This was where
Thank
in
you for that,
Florida?
John.
This was in Detroit.
Oh, Detroit. What was Matt Gaetz doing in Detroit? I guess.
I mean, there was a lot of conservatives coming to Detroit. It was a lot of Congress people. It was a lot of conservatives. We had specifically it was Turning Point USA, the people who were holding this event.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had Charlie Kirk there. Yeah, so Charlie Kirk was pretty much hosting the event.
Ooh, in Detroit either. Yeah, that was back in like June 15th. There was a rally over in Detroit.
Yeah, he's amazing.
You know, you sound like you're staunchly conservative, but
Charlie Kirk is not amazing. It's all software developers in the chat. Change all the cancel buttons to abort to mess with conservatives.
is there anything you disagree with the conservatives or the Republican Party?
Israel.
Oh,
Israel.
Explain.
Israel. I just personally don't believe Israel should exist. I mean, it's stolen land. If you want the truth.
Whoa.
I mean, what?
You don't think Israel should exist?
Me personally, no.
Well, where
wasn't he? If he doesn't believe that they should exist, then on what grounds are they defending themselves against Palestinians? How did this guy? I cannot wait to clip this.
Where should they go?
Well, where should they go? I mean, they weren't born there.
Nobody
so
was.
Why not just stay in your country where you?
Okay, this guy has the same understanding of geopolitical history that Sarah Palin did.
Were born, you know. I mean, I'm not saying.
Well,
like, yeah,
there's a lot of Jews who were born in Israel now.
Well, true. That's true, but before that, they moved out a bunch of Palestinians just to keep their own land.
Yeah,
they did. But how did they get there? How did the Israelis that currently exist now? How did they get there? I wonder if he knows the history of the Zionist project.
From them. I mean, come on, it was originally their land. I mean, I'm just saying the fact.
It depends how far back you go, right?
Yeah, it depends on how far back you go. I mean, before then, yeah it wasn't their land.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
Holocaust.
Okay, am I allowed to push back on you a little bit?
Sure. I love it.
Okay,
so Mr. Challenge.
So Mr. Fat Ass Dog.
you can call me Noah.
Okay, Noah. Where are you from?
Detroit.
So born and raised?
Yes.
I thought I recognized that belch. That was a Detroit belch if I ever heard one. They wouldn't be defending themselves. It would be inoffensive. Yeah, I'm not sure. Was there time slippage? Did I fall into a new timeline? I'm pretty sure that this guy, he couldn't understand how leftists could support Palestinians. So it sounded like, okay, well, you know, the Palestinians did this horrible thing. Palestinians did this horrible thing to the Israelis, which isn't the case. Hamas, a terrorist organization in Gaza, orchestrated a terrorist attack on civilians in Israel. And it's terrible that we would support Palestinians in general, given what Hamas operatives did to Israeli civilians. So Israel is defending itself, according to him, from the Palestinians, when in actuality, all they need to do is target the Hamas organization, but they don't have a right to be there. Israel doesn't have the right to be there in the first place. Have I summarized that? Have I steelman that correctly? If anybody in the chat, I don't want to do the thing that I did with taxes earlier. Tell me I'm right or wrong here. Let me know if I need to retire, like maybe Biden should. I'm kidding.
So you'd be okay with the military coming in, or some people, the UN coming in, and
if the military came in, I hope they would be there to defend us.
Well, hang on.
Is this guy a troll or is he? I don't know. I don't know anymore. I think, yeah, my brain keeps having that reaction. Oh my quack. That's it. That's all I can think. Like, what? Who is this? I know he's Noah, fat ass dogs, but
if you're consistent, you should be okay with the Native Americans asking the UN military to come in and remove you. You weren't. That's not. I mean, they existed in that land way before you.
Sure, but I'm saying what they did.
The old Mandela effect. Well, people, I mean, I think that he died in prison, but I only think that apparently.
It was what they weren't the ones that took the land. It was the UN. Understand that. And I'm not proposing that.
Oh, the UN took the land. No, it didn't. It was England. He's still talking about, I hope he's not talking about the United States. We took land from First Nations people. The UN took it, and then Americans just are like, oh, look at this land over here. Thank you, UN.
Hey, we should move all these Israelites out of Israel. It's obviously too late for that, man.
So, okay, so why does he disagree with conservatives on Israel? The Israelis can't go anywhere, so that's it.
I don't think Detroit residents should exist.
Well, dude, come on.
It's native land.
All of this place is native land.
I'm not all leftists like that, man. Okay, sure, okay.
Well, what would be? See, you're being inconsistent, Noah. If you say Israel shouldn't exist because it wasn't originally their land, then Detroit people shouldn't exist because it wasn't originally their land.
Well, I mean, we've had it for thousands of years, though. How long has Israel existed?
Thousands of years? Noah, you're doing liberal math.
Hundreds. I'm sorry, hundreds.
Okay, now you're sounding like Biden. Hundreds, thousands.
Yeah, it sounded like Biden. God damn.
Okay, this is what I want you to do, Noah. I want you to just relax. I want you to go to your fridge, and if you have a beer, go ahead and drink another one, and just and I want you to sit on your couch and reflect on what you've done here today. Thanks for Thanks for calling in.
All right.
Yahweh Seeker.
Hey, Patrick.
Hi there.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up there because I can't listen to any more of this. That was incredible. That guy that we just heard from, and I just want to, this is how I'll wrap things up. Noah, who just got done talking to Pine Creek there, will be voting for Trump, assuming he's not a felon and assuming that he's registered correctly. Vote for Biden, folks. Even like, again, even if I don't care. If at this point, like the conservative project has gotten so daffy and so stupid, they could probably wheel him out on a little dolly truck kind of thing, strapped in like Hannibal Lecter, and it'd still be like, there goes my hero. These guys got nothing. All they've got is this. Holy shit, these points are so bad. Holy shit. Like, how do you go from, what did he do? He went from debate to then we crossed into talking about Palestine and how the left can do that, and their inconsistency with dealing with abortion, and then he did get in a dig on the LGBTQ community. Went specifically after trans people, and then Noah, I mean, snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, and was like, oh, I disagree with conservatives and their views on Israel. Hilarious. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. That's it for my Sunday. I'm going to be back probably with some more recorded stuff. That's what I'm thinking about doing. So I'm going to put something like that out in a few places. So keep an eye out for that. I don't know if I will be doing a live show in the middle of the week. Like I said, if I record some things, I'll probably have those scheduled and might have them scheduled out as live premieres, and those will come out. But I do plan to be back here after the 4th of July. It'll be the 4th of July holiday, so I'm planning on being back here Sunday night, hopefully, or maybe Saturday afternoon, depending on what's going on. I'm going to be covering, I've been trying to do this, some Redefined Living stuff from Discord that's weeks old now, but the person that I'm looking to guest host that with has been under the weather. They've been fighting some things, and we've been having schedule difficulties on top of that. So we're hoping next Sunday we'll be able to do that, or Saturday, depending on how scheduling works out for him. So that being said, I will let you all go. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Like I said, I will be premiering some things. If you like this, like, subscribe, send me comments, all that good stuff. If you got any suggestions or you want to rant at me, especially about how I screwed up marginal tax rates, you can email me at jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com. Follow me on TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads. And with that, I think we're about ready to call it quits. I'm going to go find a late lunch / not really. It's early dinner. So take care of yourselves, and I will catch you all later. Take care.